Until I graduated from high school, he proposed and I turned him down. My family asked me to rethink as we may have a lengthy engagement or pledge to reunite, and there was much turmoil with them. For a while, my relationship with my 36-year-old brother weakened. The one with my sister, who is 32, never recovered. She got intolerable when she started dating my ex's brother as she was confident my ex was the ideal fit for me. My siblings invited my ex everywhere, including several family holidays, but I said nothing since he was their friend as well. That is until my sister started advocating for our reunion. No matter the circumstance, my sister tried everything from try to arrange for us to share a room during holidays to setting us on blind dates. One invited my ex to it. I had enough after a time and urged my parents to step in. They stopped inviting my ex to events or letting him tag along so much and were upfront with my siblings. It was only marginally better, but while my brother withdrew, my sister did not. It all came crashing when I ran across my husband on a semester abroad. We simply clicked even though he attended another university but from a different nation. For me, it was fantastic. We started dating a year ago. Except for my sister, my family was really glad for me. She persisted in saying I would grow out of the honeymoon phase. I obviously didn't, and I would quit talking to her if she pulled anything else after many battles and tried to get me back with my ex. After that caution, what does she do? She appoints one of her friends as my husband's date, asks me to spend all my time with the bridal party, aka my ex, and makes me her maid of honor. The poor girl tried to pass at my husband, and we didn't know until we were at the reception. Since we are not married, my sister stated it was acceptable to explore things with others. I left the celebration, and the next day I chatted with my brother and parents. I said that although I won't force them to make decisions, I will not interact with my sister ever again and will cut off all communication with them should they try to mend things between us. While my dad and brother indicated they would support my choice, my mom was distraught and sought to compromise. Apart from 2 tries from my mother, over 6 years I haven't spoken, written, or anything with my sister. From gifts to tantrums, my sister has tried everything to mend with me, but I hardly interact with her at all. If we're at a family dinner or gathering, I just pretend she doesn't exist. She tried to generate drama or made snide remarks at first, but she gave up when nobody supported her. She would not be involved in any planning even though she did have a meltdown upon learning she was invited to my wedding. According to my brother, his relationship with my ex has worsened subsequently and he feels bad for continuing along for so long. Though they are not as close now, they still talk. The problem? I finally said we are having our first child. My mom's birthday was several weeks ago. Though my first granddaughter, this is not the first grandchild. Except my sister, everyone was really delighted. My mother observed that and asked me for tea one other day. Though my sixth sense warned me not to attend, I wanted to be optimistic. When I arrived, my sister's automobile caught my first attention. Then there was my sister, her husband, my ex, and his lunch as I walked in the door. Since my childish approach has lasted for so long, they wanted to intervene. My ex said he was merely trying to be romantic, but he realizes I wouldn't value it. His mother apologized already. I should forgive her since I was only hurting his sister for wanting the best for me. I was just texting my dad, brother, hubby, and looking at my mom incredulously. My brother-in-law had the guts to tell me I was a nasty person and I should learn how to act like an adult since I am now pregnant. My mother then started reading a letter about how hurt her daughters weren't close, how my sister was wrong but she was well-intentioned, etc. My sister then read her letter, started to cry and told me essentially another form of what the others did. I sat there until my brother showed up. I said nothing to anybody. Beyond anything I have ever seen, he was furious. He took my items and informed them all he was truly disgusted and disappointed. We left and remained in his car until my dad and husband showed up. By then I was just crying and he kept apologizing. I'm not sure what occurred there, but I emailed everyone except mom, including my lawyer's contact details attached, and said I never want to be bothered by any of them ever again. Should they, I will report it to the police. Nobody has got in touch, but my dad told me from experience that my mother and sister are hysterical. They assured him they hope to fix things and for my sister to be in my baby's life, maybe even acting as a godmother. Right now my dad is living with my brother. While some family members don't, others help me. Since my sister is now following the narrative that my husband is keeping me away from my family, I have even had mutual acquaintances phone me concerned about her well-being and asking me what happened. Although I detest having my business open to the public, I did follow the public path and shared a lengthy Facebook post about everything that happened. Though it wasn't exactly planned, I believe my sister, brother-in-law, and ex are deserving of dragging. Now my mother has been inconsolable, which makes me uncomfortable, But not as horrible as she made me feel with her little intervention. A few days ago, I agreed to meet with her and set the ground rules for any future contact, including therapy, family therapy, explicit boundaries, no sharing of information about me with my sister, and separate holidays. Above all, she will definitely be cut off should she ever do anything similar once more. She is ready to do it even though she feels this is excessive. She believed it meant instant access to baby news and that it was all fixed, but I explained to her it is a process and she has to show she has changed. My dad and brother continuously apologizing for not halting their refusal to interact with my sister earlier. Since they were able to go on and flourish, we have forgiven them. Though my MIL is dubious if cutting my mom's access to her grandchild is the best course of action, my husband supports whatever I decide upon. She feels it is finally my choice. About what to do with my mom, I'm conflicted. Commenter. What is their rationale now that you are expecting? Should you quit acting out make-believe with your husband and come to see your happily ever after resides with your ex? Regarding your child, what? Will your ex and his family welcome her? Oop. Although my sister says she is not trying to bring us together anymore, I cannot take away her opportunity to be an aunt. She stated I'm a poor sister since I spend so much time with my fantastic sisters-in-law. Of course, I disagree with her. My problem is knowing what to do with mom. Commenter. She wouldn't be your best friend without you dating your ex. OOP stands for, though I wish I could tell you, I have no idea her mental process is. My spouse believes she is simply psychologically sick. The ex, he still owns the mixtapes and CDs I created for us while we were dating, which is the most ludicrous and terrifying thing. He still finds great value in those objects, which are roughly 20 years old. Commenter. I'm kind of amazed your stalker ex, and yes, I will call him that, is still in your brother's life. Said another way, hold strong with your mother. No deadlines, she must prove she can follow your guidelines. Your sister has to live with the results of her deeds. OOP. To be fair to my brother, he did start to cut him off when I informed my parents I was somewhat uncomfortable with my ex always there. I lived away for college but would see my family on breaks. He also worked very hard to make my husband welcome, which degraded his relationship with my ex even more since he felt betrayed by my brother. My husband is one of my brother's closest friends nowadays. He only talks to my ex about our nephew or to avoid being nasty. Commenter. You have to understand that your mother is endorsing all of this. She knows your mom also believes it's appropriate, therefore a major reason Big Sis is ongoing this. This makes me somewhat depressed since my mother was always so friendly to my husband and now I'm questioning their whole relationship. For some background, neither Indian nor from a religious family are we. My parents were decent, polite ones. At first, they considered it to be a romantic thing, but subsequently came to see it wasn't. They pushed me to start college and all around. Now, I know my dad really helped me and my mom might have just followed along and had the same ideas as my sister. My sister suggested that we would be best friends with the brothers. Update 1, same day, 16 hours later. The modification I wanted to post but couldn't. I want to thank you for the so far great support and guidance. Since there are too many for me to personally address, I would like to add a bit more information in my remarks. I broke up with my ex when I was 18. He is 47 today. Our separation sprang from my unwillingness to be engaged or married. The fixation of my sister on wanting both of us to be best friends and brides drives her insistence. Although my mother has always been rather kind to my husband, I am starting to believe it was all a show, which makes me rather depressed. Although he has 2 children with an ex and has been with other people since the separation, my ex has never been married. Given he has only ever wanted to marry me, my sister feels that is a really romantic thing to do. I should also emphasize that his compulsive actions go beyond myself. From the grapevine, I know he was quite similar with his children's mother. Now he is focusing on me since my sister is supporting it since she wants his help in returning me to my good graces so she can be a good aunt. When I informed my parents I was somewhat uncomfortable with my ex always there, my brother did start to cut him off. I lived away for college but would see my family on breaks. He also made a very great effort to make my husband welcome, which degraded his relationship with my ex even more since he felt deceived by my brother. My husband is now among the closest friends of one of my brothers. He only talks to my ex over our nephew, the son of my sister, or to avoid being nasty. Although I suppose only my dad was in agreement, both of my parents seemed to be encouraging of my not wanting to be around my ex so much. We would enjoy quality time together, thus my mom told my dad she was making my preferred tea and cookies on the day of the tea party, but he could remain. Thinking it would be a great sentiment from my mom, my dad left to hang with my uncle. Right now he is really irate. When they met, my husband tried very hard with my sister. Now he simply dismisses her and thinks she is mentally sick. Though we don't know whether she is or not, her behavior cannot justify anything. Their official perspective is that it would be best for me to confront the core of my problems with my sister, hence they invited the ex and his mother. Furthermore, my spouse and I are from the same race. We are not really religious, neither Indian. Neither my ex nor my spouse have any financial differences. If such exists, it would benefit my husband. Finally, the circumstances infuriate my sisters-in-law, both the wife of my brother and the sisters of my spouse. My husband's sisters and he will be discussing her comment with their mother. My brother and his wife are debating permanently cutting off all communication with my mother. They would let her visit my nephews for a while in between either. The more I read, the more I believe I might have to go no contact with my mother for the benefit of my child. Thinking all their interactions were phony breaks my spouse, and he becomes even more angry that she made me doubt I was a nice person. Although I know my family still has a lot of talks to go concerning my mother, I will surely be getting a restraining order against my sister and the ex. Here is the appropriate semi-update on the current situation of my family. My mother said she knew better even after we spoke. She claimed I am a nasty person and that she will be obtaining either custody or rights pertaining to grandparents. Though I am nothing like what she describes, I still panicked, so we wrote her a letter about it. Moving permanently, my dad informed her he could stand by her terrorizing his child. Also choosing to go no contact are my brother and his wife. Though I understand it appears somewhat abrupt, I believe I understated the degree of hopelessness I experienced following the intervention. Later on, my husband advised them to consider very carefully what they valued and to be friendly and open to everything but would not raise a child in a poisonous environment. Reason 3,271,637. I love my hubby for this. My mother and her fakeness really break my hubby. She will never get anything from him, he says, which is as much retribution he wants. My MAL was informed about her comment by my husband and sisters, who also helped her to see why it was rather out of line. She is, as many of you would guess, a very devoted mother from a lovely family. My dad and brother keep atoning for any part they contributed to this. It astounds my dad that we have reached this position. For him, he claims, everything is still strange. Still, they claim they are ready to assist me in battling any foolish struggle my mother or sister might muster and back me no matter what. Update 2. I would like to thank you for the nice words and encouragement. I chose to publish it here so it wouldn't be removed as the original was. Though they are both wonderful and terrible at the same time, I am trying to keep upbeat about everything. Sitting my nephews down, my brother and his wife told them Grandma was sick and tried to hurt Auntie Diamond and the tiny cousin. Grandma might not be living with them anymore, they said, but that does not mean she loves them less. Though the kids are smart, it was really difficult. Although Auntie is no longer in their life, they do not care as they hate her, not because of me alone, but rather because she is not exactly great with them either. When she was told, my mother lost it and began asserting she had rights and she would be able to visit her grandkids. Mostly because of my brother's MIL coming to visit, my dad is looking for a permanent apartment but will stay with us until January. We have the space. He is quite depressed. He has contacted divorce attorneys, moved bank records, etc. already. My mother has been sending him innumerable emails, messages and calls, but he responds to nothing. He was advised not to block her right now by the lawyer. He thought about maybe forgiving her, but a few days after my last post here I had a significant increase in blood pressure since she chose to visit my house with his sister. Though my mom knew I didn't want her there and my sister had never visited my house, I suppose that doesn't matter now. Knowing my mom, the cleaning girl let them in. I haven't had time to let her know she was not allowed to enter anymore. I observed the automobile, while I was returning from some errands. I skipped this time as well. I phoned every relative, and my husband's sister, was the one closest by. She challenged them and warned them either they left or I would call the cops on them for trespassing. They went and I started to feel ill. When we visited the doctor, they advised me that all the excitement was not good and that I should start unwinding or else the baby would suffer. Along with my brother, uncle, and husband, my dad headed home carrying every single item he could have thought of. According to my husband, my sister was also present and kept yelling at him that he wrecked her family. My dad told my mother and sister they nearly killed the infant and he also wants not to interact with any of them once more. Though it is not happening, my sister kept messaging my brother begging for aid. Since his mother has some crazy beliefs, my nephew is losing so much of his family. Hence, I am devastated and somewhat sad for him, but it is what it is. Regarding the custody and grandparent rights my mother wishes to exercise so much, my attorney wrote her a letter declaring she harmed the kid and my health and declaring, should she continue to harass me, It will become official legal business. Using her harassing of me as justification, my brother also sent her a letter. My mother and sister have both turned down attending treatment. Although they may be mentally sick, given all of this comes to light, it is clear they have long-standing agreement. Spending holidays with my family, maintaining health, and attending therapy will be my main priorities. Update 3. Hi, I figured it would be a good fit as I had some time and had several requests for an update. From the bottom of my heart, I want to thank you for your comments, letters, and every piece of advice since we owe you for making us even more cautious than we were. A few asked me what process we utilized to find the baby's gender. After 20 weeks, I announced it. We wanted to be sure and feel comfortable about the announcement, hence we waited so long because we had experienced a loss in the past and we were ready to share it. We were also stupid enough to believe it would be especially meaningful for my mother. I sent it to my husband after publishing, and he spent a few days reading your comments, mails and advice. We cleaned the house and fortunately discovered nothing, but we still felt somewhat vulnerable and so visited a motel with my dad. Then we discovered a tracker on the vest of my fur baby. He has a humorous vest since he is a pretty small dog and gets cold a lot. I never would have considered checking there, but we found the tracker when my dad took him around the hotel grounds. My sister approached him about me and reconciliation. We moved since I was somewhat offended. We are fortunately able to afford it. Not merely empty, we are renting our former house as well as right now. That house used to be my favorite, but today I feel it's destroyed and contaminated in some sort. Sadly, not just me but also my brother, spouse, dad, and even the family of my husband feels the same about their residence. We changed our numbers, acquired new devices, and let friends, companies, and the police know. We began family and therapeutic sessions as well. Nevertheless, I have really forgiven my dad and brother, they still feel great shame about the circumstances. We are healing as a family nevertheless. Mom and sister argue they don't need therapy and they are not wrong. My dad created a new will whereby my sister's son receives a trust fund and some inheritance but my sister receives a nominal sum. He really is done with her. Though I felt awful for her, I resolved to concentrate on my baby. She is here, we are blessed. Since my mother is no longer with me, this is not the experience I considered. Yet many friends and relatives have really surprised us. Eventually, we were so worried that we began testing some people we knew nothing about by telling them I was about to go into labor. It worked like magic. We cut off those who were still providing information to my mother and sister. When we clarified the thinking, the rest made sense. We have been having a torrid affair because of my undying love for the baby, thus my ex, who my friends now call Bates, went around stating the baby was his. Nobody believes him now, but it caused my husband to call Bates's company and inform him of all the madness. Long story short, Bates was suspended while internal review was under progress. Given their requests for more and more information and their seeming contrition, I nearly guarantee he will be let go. My mother has searched for us, but none of the people who know of our whereabouts have contacted her either. Her dad's attorney wrote her a letter saying that since she is unstable, all letters will now go via attorneys. Just my dad and myself since I felt so horrible for him being by himself. I still feel terrible even though he has assured me he will be all right and that nothing is my fault. In the world, he has been the best diaper changer, feeder, and babysitter. As usual, my nephews are loving. My dad even visited the son of my sister. She started creating films threatening to injure herself if my husband stopped isolating her from the family, thus this came about. She seems to have stopped it when my dad emailed her regarding visiting her son and advised her he would call the police about her threats. Finally someone mentioned that I gave Bates false hope. That cannot be more far from reality. I spent years uncomfortable since I assumed he would move on. After I spoke out and saw my husband, I spent a lot of time berating my sister over it. I married after my sister as I had a very long engagement. Though I still love my mother and sister, I put a good life for my family and me over that affection. Over this entire process, I have come across a great deal of compassion, love and loyalty. Strange as it sounds, I feel happy that all of this exploded. Hopefully, it is not too tangy. Many hugs from me. Update 4. My dad moved into the guest house when we formally settled into a new house. We concluded that although it would be great for him to be with us, we all still need our space after many conversations, in and outside of therapy. We will be choosing what to do with the previous place later. We are still renting it now. About 3 times a week now, my dad has grandchildren all gathered around. She refuses to allow him to have the child until she knows where he lives, which, to be fair, is a typical thing. But considering she is insane, we do not want her around. He still needs to see my sister's child separately. Mom objected to the lawyers about how unjust it is. Though little she can do about it, my dad still gets to visit every grandchild. My dad informed me he had a confession around a month ago and dear reader, my stomach started hurting. She still lets him see me since he pays for my nephew's, sister's child, tuition and babysitting. Not wanting to keep secrets, he felt so bad for hiding it. I told him to relax and that there was nothing wrong with it. My dad received an email on Mother's Day with a link to an Instagram account with a somber video on my mother and how most of her family has deserted her, as well as how much of a saint my sister is for being there for her. Though I just forwarded it to the attorney, it was truly pitiful and infuriated me. Dad formally asked for divorce in May, and the procedure is still underway. I believe that's final as my dad said he would sooner drink bleach than go back to her and my mom insists he is mistaken. My dad was given Father's Day by my brother and husband, who had a great time. That day, my sister uploaded a lot of items, but we wanted Dad to enjoy the day, hence we blocked him from ever knowing about it. They also went to a hotel, got a suite, and set up a tent in the middle area for the kids and a little tippy for the infant on a camping trip with them. To be honest, one of the finest things I've ever done is have a baby. Witnessing my husband be the wonderful father I knew would make me very happy. Though it is demanding, we have a lot of help. I have my rocks at my side, thus I am thankful beyond everything. My sisters-in-law and I now have a little calendar for sharing age-appropriate activities for the children. If they so want, we let them know they do not need to hang out with individuals they dislike and that their voices count. We have tiny get-togethers, brunches, etc. Right now, they are all fixated on the infant and claim to be her defenders. To be honest, without my sister present, family time is now a delight rather than a chore. She simply saps the enthusiasm from the room. I know it's awful to say. Along with staying in the guest room roughly once a week, my meal enjoys spending time with the baby. She replied gently that she wanted nothing from the infant for sleepovers or anything. She respects and listens to me and sure, I have broken down occasionally as I miss my mom a lot. I miss the mother I had, or believed I had, not the one who informed me I would be a nasty woman or awful mother. According to my therapist, it's a marathon and to keep the positive first. About good, Bates was let go. Not only that, but his industry's reputation suffered nuclear-level harm as well. So was his brother's, but he still has his job as far as I know since Bill is not in an industry that gives reputation much thought. About his hurt, how I'm denying him what is his, and how my husband is so intimidated by him that he had to go and professionally destroy him since he cannot ruin anything else, Bates sent me a 12-page, double-sided, single-spaced letter. I say seems as my lawyer reviewed it and sent me a synopsis. I did not read it. The grapevine also told me, no, I don't ask anyone, they just tell me since they know he is stalking me, that the mother of his children relocated and he didn't even care and stated it was for the best. This man wants to play family with the baby and me and hardly gives his children any thought. Mommy already let him move back in with her, hence sadly he won't be homeless or anything. I doubt he will learn anything from this. Not the most flashy update, but rather just what is. Oh, and with my dad's okay, my spouse burnt or donated every single item my mom or parents handed him. Even with memories, he believes, life is too short to allow her room in his life. Commenter. I am rather happy you are visiting all that with the intact good portions of your family. I appreciate Bates as a nasty guy, but has he ever done anything relevant or connected to his work? I truly don't see the firing component. OOP. It's a really close-knit one. And when you have a bad reputation, it shocks you. He is not giving up his business. Before this, he was considered as a good but detached feminist single dad. He even informed certain colleagues that I stayed with him for more than our scheduled visit. Commenter. OOP, I have respect and am sorry for what you faced. I am reading your entire story from the best of Reddit from my house in India at 1:30 a.m. As healthy and pleasant as you both are, I hope your child develops to be as well. Also, I hope this whole mess ends soon so you may be back with your mother following the end of her XF dream. Respect you, keep fighting. OOP. That's a great attitude, but I will never chat to my mom once more. I miss her a lot. I shed a lot of tears. The baby deserves the greatest family we can offer, and my mother is not part of it. She is not the person I thought she was. Though I have to safeguard the baby, it hurts. New update. Long time, no saw. Though first I want to thank you for all of your comments and letters. I have some updates for you. I value it greatly as every time I log into this account I am inundated with essentially wonderful stuff. Nobody will probably read this, but for those that want updates, they are mostly decent. Let's get right on with that out of the way. Now following several arguments and outbursts from my mother, my parents are divorced. That is it. Kept the house and received a lump payment. We are all quite thrilled for my dad, who seems like a new man. A little flashback. We didn't terminate our cleaning lady during all the hoopla. This woman had been serving my husband's family for decades, and her absence from work due to what her insane relatives did caused great anxiety in me. We are not slobs either, and she is not kneeling or anything like that polishing floors. In any case, my dad told her she was on paid vacation till we moved into a new house and to kindly wait for us should she wish. She was not fired at all. Her family was likewise really delighted about it. Because they were so appreciative of what he was doing for them, my dad occasionally started gathering food and goods from them. Well, my dad is currently seeing her. Her sister runs her own nail business. She is a really beautiful woman who has grown children, hence she can relate to the dynamics occurring occasionally. She is happy with him as he has been quite clear that he is neither moving or getting married. She values her independence. When her mother learned about his new relationship, she almost passed out. She kept claiming it was a late midlife crisis and he had to turn to be a sugar dad. I obviously heard this since I don't interact with her, but last I heard she is struggling. She depends on my dad and struggles as she was never adept in budgeting. She had to stop making insane purchases. My dad is not assisting my sister with money anymore, hence she is also suffering. You see, he was ready to stay on helping for my nephew's benefit, but then things became very difficult. Starting to nickname my child an affair baby, my nephew said she is not with her own father. Saying they were only he, not my kids' cousins, he pushed one of my nephews on my husband's side during a birthday party, calling my other nephews delusional. The children were bewildered and thus very confused, but they told an adult right away. Dad spoke with him, but he kept repeating it. When he spoke with my sister, she claimed she had no way to stop a child from speaking the truth and that not all children always do. He is severing them, he informs her till something changes. She sobbed and fretted, but she also was really tenacious. My nephew attends public school now since my spouse forced my dad to cut them off. Bates, well, he is still without work. I know I was vague about it, but some of it had to do with stalking, irony much, and he worked in a field connected to vulnerable women. He was therefore sacked for this. The company he worked for didn't want this all over them. He has sent 2 more very long, handwritten, rambling letters. As he only has my lawyer's address, guess who has the honor of reading, compiling and submitting those rams? My lawyer is a champ, I love him. Apart from that and the rumors, I have not had any negative experiences involving him except one. A random woman approached me at the grocery shop to find out whether my child was Bates's baby. I was startled and froze. She stated he had a picture of us on his page when I asked her what she was on, and I should feel bad for hurting such a decent man. Turns out he is still following the story that my child is his and that I loved him so greatly. That is all old news. The picture comment really startled me the most. There is nothing public or like that about this picture. That is it. It was emailed once to a family group. I told my husband right away, and he got furious but under control. We made the decision to smoke the rat. To cut a long tale short, my dad's 2 sisters were providing information to my mother. Though he was somewhat let down, my dad had no questions about cutting them off. They still implore him to meet with them once more. His family and mine are doing fantastic. We have seen them frequently and have spent some family holidays since the last update. They also hardly interact with my sister and mother. Since it turns out she was not a fan of our mom but preserved the peace, my SIL is actually quite glad about it. Also quite beautiful are my in-laws. She is over the moon about us allowing male overnight babysitting now. Her grandchildren are all happy to be with her. Sometimes she has all of them under one roof. She used to be a flight attendant, hence their preferred game is to act like an airline. We don't worry as they love her generally and we know she is nice with our children. My mother kept stalking her, so she had to make her socials private. She prepared her own bed, hence I am sure she is quite jealous. Last but not least, my hubby keeps me sane even in small matters. We wonder whether we ought to adopt another baby or even have one. We still have to decide, but we have a tremendous support network and the advantage to have these talks. I still long greatly for my mother. When I know there are milestones I can no longer enjoy with her, I occasionally cry. Yet, she is a bad person. Thus the safety of my family comes first. Last interesting tidbit. They went camping last Father's Day. It was excellent save from some poorly placed sunburns and bug bites. My wife cheated while I grieved my brother's death, blamed me. Then years later, at a wedding, she tried to reconcile, but my new life shocked her. I, 32M, had been with my wife, Teresa, 30F, for 8 years and married for 4. We met at a party hosted by a mutual friend during our sophomore year in college. I was immediately taken to her confident personality and sharp wit. Teresa was studying business, while I was studying engineering. We bonded over our mutual enjoyment of outdoor activities and sampling new foods. Our first date was a disaster. I lost my money and spilled wine on her dress, but Teresa shrugged it off, and we wound up spending hours roaming around campus and talking. I realized she was exceptional right away. Teresa's drive and ambition struck me as our relationship progressed. She hailed from a working-class family and was driven to pursue a good career. I loved how she managed her academics, a part-time job, and internships. Teresa pushed me out of my comfort zone by encouraging me to apply for competitive internships and leadership positions in student organizations. After graduation, we both found nice employment in the city, Teresa with a lighting company, and I at an engineering firm. We moved in together after a year and got engaged soon after. Our wedding was a modest, intimate gathering of close friends and family. Teresa was lovely in her plain white outfit, and I recall feeling like the luckiest man alive. Our first couple years of marriage were great. We both advanced in our careers, which enabled us to travel and enjoy life in the city. We had a wonderful group of friends and frequently hosted dinner parties or game nights at our home. Teresa and I spoke effectively and rarely fought. When we disagreed, we always tried to listen to each other and find a solution. Teresa's independence was one of my favorite aspects of her personality. We both cherished our personal time and hobbies. Teresa enjoyed yoga and painting, while I enjoyed basketball and tinkering with vintage cars. We supported each other's interests and struck a healthy balance between couple and individual activities. Everything changed when Mason, my older brother, was diagnosed with stage 4 lung cancer. Mason and I had always been quite close. He was not only my brother, he was also my best friend, confidant, and role model. Mason was always there for me growing up. He taught me how to ride a bike, assisted me with my homework, and offered advice on everything from school to relationships. When our parents divorced during my adolescence, Mason became my rock. He was attending college at the time, but he called me every day to check in. He even came home on weekends to see whether I was all right. Mason was the one who encouraged me to apply to college and assisted me with moving into my dorm. At my wedding, his best man speech moved everyone to tears. Happy tears, naturally. Mason's diagnosis hit me like a truck. He had always been the picture of health. He ran marathons, ate properly, and never smoked. It appeared so unjust. I recall sitting in the doctor's office with him and his wife Sarah, feeling as if the world was collapsing on us. Since then, I've spent as much time as possible with Mason. I drove him to his chemotherapy appointments, stayed with him in the hospital, and attempted to lift his spirits. Teresa was initially helpful, accompanying me on visits to Mason and assisting Sarah with food and chores. But as the weeks grew into months, Teresa began to protest. She claimed I was spending too much time with Mason and neglected our relationship. I tried to explain how vital it was for me to be there for my brother, but Teresa appeared to resent the time I was away from her. We began bickering more frequently, generally over my schedule or her feeling neglected. I tried to balance time with Mason and Teresa, but it was really difficult. Mason's condition was fast deteriorating, and I wanted to be as present for him as possible. At the same time, I felt awful about not giving Teresa the attention she craved. It was a no-win scenario. Despite rigorous therapy, Mason died 8 months after being diagnosed. I was absolutely devastated. Mason had been such a constant in my life that I couldn't imagine the world without him. The loss devastated me, and I sank into a profound despair. I took a leave of absence from work and spent the majority of my time at home. Some days, I could hardly get out of bed. Everything reminded me of Mason, TV shows we used to watch together, private jokes we shared, and even particular foods he enjoyed. The grief was intense. Teresa attempted to be helpful at first, but her patience ran out quickly. She kept trying to persuade me to get over it and resume our normal social life. She planned events and invited friends over, but I couldn't bring myself to socialize. Teresa seemed to take it personally and accused me of pushing her away. This carried on for around 3 months. I knew Teresa was having a difficult time, but I was doing my best to cope with this enormous loss. I was attending a bereavement counselor and attempting to process my emotions, but healing takes time. Teresa grew increasingly distant and unpleasant. Then one day, I received a call from Liam, Mason's best buddy since boyhood. Liam had been like another brother to me growing up, and he'd been a huge help after Mason's death. However, this call was different. Liam's voice was uncertain when he informed me he saw Teresa at a motel with another man. I did not want to believe it at first. I absolutely believed Teresa and couldn't picture her cheating, But Liam emailed me a photo he had taken, and there was no disputing it. Teresa was in a passionate embrace with a man I didn't recognize, and they were going to enter a hotel room. I felt like I'd been punched in the stomach. How could Teresa do this to me, especially because I was grieving for my brother? I sat in stunned silence for hours, staring at the snapshot and attempting to make sense of it. When Teresa arrived home that evening, I confronted her. I showed her the photograph and asked for an explanation. She initially denied it, claiming that it was not what it appeared to be. But when I questioned her, she broke down in tears and admitted to having an affair with a coworker for the past 2 months. Teresa's excuses made me feel awful. She claimed she felt lonely and ignored when I was grieving. She complained that I was not providing her needs and that she deserved happiness. She even had the arrogance to claim that I had pushed her to cheat by being emotionally unavailable. I was infuriated and heartbroken. I told Teresa to leave and that I wanted a divorce. She asked me to rethink and give her another opportunity. She screamed and pleaded, claiming it was a mistake and that she still loved me, but I knew I could never trust her again after this betrayal. The next day, Teresa called and texted me nonstop, attempting to explain herself. She claimed I was being harsh and exaggerating. She claimed that I had emotionally abandoned her by initially spending so much time with Mason and then withdrawing when grieving. She tried to blame me for encouraging her to cheat. I'm at a total loss. How could the lady I loved and trusted for 8 years do this to me, especially when I was grieving for my brother? And now she's attempting to blame me. Is it abnormal for me to refuse to even consider reconciliation? I feel like my entire universe has been broken. I keep revisiting our relationship in my head, wondering if there were any indicators I missed. Was Teresa always so selfish, and I just didn't notice, or did Mason's illness and death transform her? I'm doubting everything now. Part of me is upset with myself for not anticipating this. Perhaps if I had worked harder to balance my time between Mason and Teresa, this would not have occurred. But then I remember that a loving partner would have understood and supported me through such a difficult time. I haven't informed many people about Teresa's affair yet. I'm humiliated and don't want to deal with everyone's responses, but I know I'll need help moving forward, especially if I go through with the divorce. I am not sure what to do next. The prospect of going through a divorce while still grieving Mason is daunting, but I also can't imagine remaining with someone who could betray me like this. Any advice would be greatly appreciated. Thank you all for your encouraging words and advice. To clarify a few points, Teresa knew Mason and I were close. She'd met him several times and appeared to like him. She was in the hospital with me when he died. During my grief, I never entirely shut Teresa out. We continued to live together, have meals together and so on. I was just not in the mood to go out or be personal. Before confronting Teresa, I performed some research and discovered that the affair had been going on for 4 months, not 2 as she stated. So it began shortly after Mason died. Teresa and I had no major relationship troubles prior to this. We had regular disputes, but nothing significant. She never expressed feeling ignored until Mason became ill. I appreciate everyone's feedback as I absorb this betrayal. I'll give an update whenever I have more information. Update 1. It's been around 2 months since my original post. A lot has transpired, therefore I'd like to provide an update. I filed for divorce soon after learning Teresa's adultery. It was not an easy decision, but I knew I could never trust her again after what she had done. Teresa's reaction to the divorce petition was a mix of outrage and desperate pleas. She kept calling and messaging me, alternately offering emotional apologies and accusing rants. Teresa showed up unannounced at my office. She made a scene in the lobby, crying and imploring me to give her another chance. My coworkers were uncomfortable, and I was mortified. I had to have security escort her out. After that episode, I banned her phone number for my own sanity. Teresa left our house and moved in with her folks. I've been staying in the house, but it feels empty and filled with sad memories. I'm thinking about selling it and finding a new location, but the prospect of going through another major life upheaval is daunting. I learned from common friends that Teresa was telling everyone that I had mentally abused her by abandoning her emotionally. She stated that I had refused to speak or work on our marriage, forcing her to seek consolation elsewhere. It was infuriating to hear these lies circulated about me. Some of our friends have chosen sides in the divorce. The majority have been supportive of me, although a handful believe Teresa's version of events. I've lost a handful of friendships as a result of this, which hurts even more than everything else. I'm trying to concentrate on the folks who have supported me. The divorce process has been messy. Teresa is claiming that she is entitled to half of everything, including Mason's inheritance. My lawyer assures me that she has no legal claim to it, yet she is delaying the process regardless. It feels like a slap in the face that she would attempt to benefit from my brother's death after betraying me. In the aftermath of everything, I've been dealing with a lot of despair and trust issues. Some days, it's difficult to get out of bed. I lost weight since I rarely eat. My performance at work has diminished, but happily, my supervisor has remained understanding. One positive development. I reunited with an old high school classmate, Olivia. We ran into each other at a coffee shop and started conversing. Olivia lost her mother to cancer a few years ago, so she understood exactly what I was going through with Mason. We've been hanging out as friends, and it's great to have someone who gets it. Olivia and I have a lot in common, something I had forgotten about. We were both on the debate team in high school and enjoy watching old movies. She has been introducing me to new music and podcasts, which has provided a wonderful distraction. Olivia doesn't force me to talk about Teresa or the divorce, but she is an excellent listener when I need to vent. Teresa flipped out when she discovered I was spending time with Olivia. She arrived at my house unexpectedly, yelling that I was a hypocrite for moving on so soon while vilifying her. She accused me of having an affair with Olivia, which is completely false. I had to threaten to call the cops before she left. The situation has been a nightmare, but I'm taking things one day at a time. I'm working on healing and discovering who I am outside of my connection with Teresa. I appreciate my family and friends' support during this trying time. I've been attempting to honor Mason's memory in constructive ways. I donated to the cancer facility where he was treated and have been volunteering whenever I can. Mason's wife, Sarah, and their children have been an excellent source of support. We have dinner together frequently, and it's helpful to talk about Mason with others who care about him as much as I do. There are still times when I miss Teresa and the life we shared, but then I remember her betrayal and how she has acted after I discovered the truth. It helps to emphasize that I'm making the correct decision by terminating the marriage. I'm not ready to consider dating again. The idea of putting myself out there and risking another heartbreak is daunting. For the time being, my primary emphasis is on reconstructing my life and recuperating from everything that has occurred. I will provide another update after the divorce is official. Thank you again to everyone who has expressed kindness and advice. It truly helps to know that I'm not alone in this. Update 2. It has been around 6 months since my last update. I was relieved when the divorce was finally finalized last week. Teresa fought me every step of the way, attempting to prolong the process and collect more money. In the end, we split our joint assets 50-50, and she did not receive any of my Mason inheritance. Teresa returned to my office the day after her divorce became final. She was crying and begging me to reconsider, claiming she had made a terrible mistake but still loved me. I politely but firmly informed her that it was finished and requested her to leave. She refused, raising a commotion, and security had to remove her out. It was humiliating, so I took the rest of the day off work. My employer summoned me to his office the next day. I was concerned that he would be disturbed by the disruption, but he was actually very understanding. He mentioned that he had a messy divorce years ago and offered me some time off if I needed it. I was appreciative for his help and understanding. On a good note, Olivia has been doing well. What began as a friendship has gradually grown into something more. We've been officially dating for approximately 2 months now. Olivia is compassionate, sympathetic, and patient with me while I work through my trust difficulties. She encourages me to talk about Mason and never makes me feel awful for continuing to grieve. Olivia and I have been taking it slowly, which I love. We enjoy cooking together, taking long walks, and binge-watching TV shows. She's been assisting me in rediscovering old hobbies that I had abandoned throughout my marriage, such as playing guitar and photography. I've also focused on myself. I joined a gym, began learning guitar, and have traveled extensively. It is fantastic to rediscover who I am as a person. I went on a solo excursion to the mountains, which I had always wanted to do but Teresa was not interested in. It was pleasant to be alone with my thoughts and environment. Teresa continues to disparage me to anyone who will listen. She has told common acquaintances that I'm cold and unfeeling, that I never truly loved her, and that Olivia and I must have had an affair prior to our divorce. It's frustrating, but I'm trying not to get involved in her drama. I have begun spending more time with Mason's family. His children are growing up so quickly, and it's bittersweet to watch them hit milestones that Mason isn't present for. We've developed a ritual of having Sunday dinners together, telling tales about Mason and keeping his memory alive. Mason would have celebrated his birthday last month. It was a difficult day, but Olivia recommended we do something to honor Dad. We ended up organizing a modest charity race in Mason's honor, with funds benefiting cancer research. It felt amazing to turn my grief into something positive. Overall, I'm a lot better off than I was a year ago. I still miss Mason deeply, But the pain is not as intense. I am cautiously optimistic about my future with Olivia, and I'm pleased of myself for holding firm and not allowing Teresa to mislead me into reconciling. There are still difficult days, of course. Sometimes I wake up angry at Teresa for abandoning our marriage. Other times, I miss the future we envisioned together. But I'm learning to sit with these emotions without allowing them to overwhelm me. Thank you again to everyone in our community for their support. It helped me get through some difficult times. I don't know what the future holds, but I'm feeling optimistic for the first time in a long time. Update 3. It's been almost a year since my previous update. Life has returned to normal, and I'd want to express my last opinions on the matter. Olivia and I are still together and going strong. We just moved in together and adopted a dog. She's been a tremendous help through everything. I still have moments of insecurity and doubt, but Olivia is always kind and supportive. Our relationship isn't perfect, we've had our share of arguments and challenges, but we always try to talk freely and work through problems together. It's wonderful to be around someone who values honesty and mutual respect. I met Teresa at a mutual friend's wedding a few months ago. It was awkward, but we managed to remain cordial. She apologized again for her behavior during our divorce and stated that she was in therapy, working on herself. I wished her well but made it obvious that I was not interested in rekindling any kind of relationship, including friendship. Seeing Teresa evoked a variety of feelings. Part of me was outraged again, remembering her betrayal and the suffering she caused, but I also felt a sense of closure. Talking to her made me realize how much I'd grown and healed in the last few years. The pain over Mason is coming in waves now. Some days are more difficult than others, particularly around his birthday and the anniversary of his death, but I've discovered healthy methods to cope and celebrate his memory. I volunteer at the hospital where he was treated and have grown close to his wife and children. Mason's oldest son at 14, has been struggling lately. He's been acting out at school and is dealing with rage issues. I've been spending more time with him, taking him to basketball games and simply being there to talk. It feels amazing to be there for him in the same way Mason has always been for me. Olivia and I have discussed our future together. We are not in a rush to marry, but we both see this as a long-term relationship. We've spoken about having kids eventually, something I never imagined I'd desire after what happened with Teresa. It's hard to think of opening my heart again, but Olivia makes me feel protected. Work is going great. I was promoted a few months ago, which has been both exhilarating and challenging. The new work requires more travel, which has been difficult for Olivia and me, but we're figuring out how to balance our time together with our respective activities. I'm attempting to reconnect with past hobbies and interests. I joined a local amateur baseball league, which I enjoyed in college but gave up when life became busy. It's been exciting to get back on the field and meet new people. Olivia attends my sports whenever she can, cheering me on from the stands. Looking back, I see how toxic my relationship with Teresa had been, even before the adultery. We had grown apart, but we were both afraid to accept it. While I will never excuse her affair, I have accepted what happened and am looking ahead. There are still instances when I think, what if? What if Mason didn't get sick? What if I had noticed Teresa moving away sooner? What if I'd done things differently? But I am learning to let go of such thoughts and concentrate on the present. I am not the same person I was when I wrote the first post 2 years ago. The anguish and betrayal transformed me, but not all of the changes were negative. I've learned a lot about myself, resilience, and what I truly want from a spouse and in life. To anyone going through a similar situation, it does get better. Take the time to heal, surround yourself with supporting friends, and don't be scared to start afresh. You deserve happiness and someone who actually appreciates you. This will be my final update on this storyline. Thank you again for your kindness and encouragement over the last few years. It made a huge impact during the worst periods. I am looking forward to the future, whatever it may hold. My spiteful sister-in-law accused me of stealing her diamond ring, but when this was revealed, she wasn't ready for the shock. I, 29F, have been married to Shane, 31M, for 5 years. We have a solid connection and a comfortable lifestyle. Shane has a sister, Tori, 33, who has been married to Mike, 35, for 8 years. Tori and I never really got along. Tori appeared to dislike me ever since Shane introduced me to his family. At first, I assumed it was simply because she was protective of her brother, but as time passed, I understood there was more to it. I was raised in a middle-class family. My parents worked hard to support me and my siblings. We never had luxuries, but we always had what we needed. I went to college on scholarships and worked part-time jobs to cover my expenditures. Following college, I took a job at a technology company and worked my way up. Tori, on the other hand, hailed from an affluent household. She never had to worry about money and received everything she desired. She attended an expensive private college before marrying Mike, who was also from a wealthy background. Tori didn't work and spent her time shopping, visiting spas, and attending social gatherings. When Shane and I began dating, Tori made it apparent that she did not think I was suitable for her brother. She'd make snarky remarks about my clothing, employment, and background. Despite the fact that Shane was seeing me, she was constantly trying to match him up with her wealthy friends. Despite Tori's attitude, Shane and I married. Our wedding was simple yet gorgeous. We paid for it ourselves and held a small ceremony for close friends and relatives. Tori complained about everything at the wedding, including the food and decor. She even donned a white outfit, which I chose to overlook to avoid the controversy. Shane's career skyrocketed following our marriage. He was promoted numerous times and began earning a decent salary. We were able to buy a wonderful home and go on vacation. This seemed to aggravate Tori's jealousy. She was constantly comparing our life to hers, always attempting to outdo us. Last month, Shane's parents invited the entire family to spend the weekend at their lake house. I didn't want to go because of Tori, but Shane persuaded me that it would be beneficial for family bonding. The first day went fine. We all arrived on Friday evening and dined together. Tori rarely spoke to me, which was okay with me. On Saturday morning, we had a swim in the lake. After lunch, Tori recommended we all play board games. Tori continued to show off her beautiful diamond ring while we were playing. She made a great deal about how pricey it was and how her father had surprised her with it on their anniversary. I complimented the ring politely, but Tori simply rolled her eyes. Later that afternoon, I decided to have a nap. I was fatigued after driving and swimming. I walked to the guest room Shane and I stayed in and fell asleep. I awoke about an hour later to shouting. I walked downstairs and discovered Tori screaming and crying. She yelled that her diamond ring was missing. Everyone was attempting to calm her down and help her find it. Tori was turning the living room upside down, tossing cushions and peering beneath furniture. Tori then pointed at me and cried that I had taken her ring. She claimed I was envious of her ring and wanted it for myself. I was astonished and rejected it right away. Shane defended me, stating that I would never do such a thing. Tori stated that I was the only one who had been alone in the house while everyone else went outdoors. She insisted that I empty my pockets and show her my baggage. I felt ashamed, but I did everything she wanted to establish my innocence. The ring was not present, but Tori was dissatisfied. To my dismay, Mike chimed in and accused me of hiding the ring somewhere. He stated I must have done it out of envy and recommended we check our room. I could not believe what was happening. I looked to Shane's parents for help, but they were apprehensive. Shane's father suggested that we all search the house thoroughly. We looked everywhere for hours and couldn't find the ring. As time passed, I noticed uncertainty creeping into everyone's eyes. Even Shane's mother, who had always been friendly to me, gave me skeptical looks. By dinner time, the mood was terrible. Tori was still crying, and Mike was soothing her while staring at me. Shane's cousins were whispering amongst themselves, and I could sense their accusing eyes. The breaking point came when Shane's father pulled him aside. I overheard him instructing Shane to man up and make me return the ring or pay for it. He claimed the ring was worth hundreds of dollars and Tori was upset. Shane lost his temper. He yelled at his father, stating he couldn't believe his own family would accuse him without evidence. He exclaimed that I was innocent and Tori had probably misplaced the ring. This resulted in a heated argument, with everyone taking sides. I felt terrible. I couldn't believe what was occurring. My husband's family treated me like a criminal even though I had never stolen anything in my life. Shane grabbed my hand in the middle of our quarrel and told me we were leaving. He informed his family that he was upset with them for leaping to conclusions and mistreating me. We packed our stuff quickly and went, despite his parents' objections. Shane was seething as he drove home. He repeatedly apologized to me, claiming he couldn't believe his family would do this. I was astonished and didn't know what to say. I felt bad for fostering this schism in Shane's family, even though I knew I had done nothing wrong. When we arrived home, Shane's phone was swamped with messages from his relatives. Tori demanded we pay for the ring. Mike had sent me a lengthy text accusing me of wrecking their lives via jealousy. Shane's parents asked him to be reasonable and return to work things out. Shane blocked all of their numbers that night. He said he didn't want to speak with any of them until they apologized to me, but I could tell how much this was hurting him. He adored his family, and this split was tearing him apart. A week has gone by, but the situation has not improved. Tori has been posting on social media about how I took her valuable anniversary gift. Some of Shane's extended family members have contacted us, encouraging us to do the right thing and pay for the ring to maintain peace. I am at a loss. I know I didn't take the ring, but I can't prove it. Shane trusts me, but I can see the toll it is having on him. He has lost weight and is not sleeping properly. He's even thinking about changing careers so we can relocate to another place and escape all of this stress. Part of me wonders if we should just pay for the ring to put this all behind us, but it's a lot of money, and more importantly, it would be admitting to something I didn't do. I'm afraid if we give in now, Tori will keep this over my head forever. I never wanted to come between Shane and his family. Regardless of our differences, I hope Tori and I would eventually get along. Now it appears that will never happen. I do not know what to do. Should I maintain my innocence, even if it means Shane loses his family? Should we pay for the ring to maintain peace? How can I prove I didn't steal something when there is no evidence either way? This entire affair has been a nightmare. I've lost sleep, can't concentrate at work, and am constantly anxious. Shane swears he'll always support me, but I can tell this is causing him pain as well. So Reddit, should I admit to stealing a ring that I did not take or pay for? How would you handle my situation? How can I resolve this situation without jeopardizing my integrity? Update. It's been 3 months since my previous post, and a lot has happened. I never anticipated things to turn out the way they did, but I'm glad the truth is now out. 2 weeks after the incident at the lake house, Leah, Shane's cousin, called me. She stated that she had some information about Tori's missing ring and wanted to meet me in person. I was hesitant at first, but Leah argued that it was necessary. The following day, we met in a small cafe. Leah appeared anxious and kept looking around, as if she was frightened someone would overhear us. She informed me that she had heard something unexpected from Angela, Ethan's girlfriend. Ethan was Mike's best friend. Angela told Leah that Mike had removed Tori's ring. Mike and Ethan had apparently entered into a business deal with a loan shark. They borrowed a significant quantity of money, but instead of investing it, they used it all to gamble and party in Las Vegas. When it came time to repay the debt, they were broke. In desperation, Mike took Tori's ring and sold it to help pay off the debt. He then used the family gathering to stage the ring's disappearance and blamed me. I was stunned. I couldn't believe what I heard. Part of me was happy that I wasn't insane and hadn't taken the ring, but another part of me was angry and upset that Mike would do this to his own wife and then blame me for it. Leah stated that she did not know what to do with this information. She felt bad for keeping it a secret, but she was frightened of causing additional family problems. I thanked her for informing me and told her that I would handle it responsibly. When I arrived home, I told Shane exactly what Leah had said. At first, he was skeptical. He couldn't believe his brother-in-law would do anything like this, but as we discussed it, things began to make sense. We remembered Mike's uneasy demeanor throughout the ring incident and how quick he was to accuse me. Shane decided to do some digging. He began by contacting some of Mike's old college pals and discovered that Mike had a gambling history that he had kept hidden from his family. Mike's acquaintances reported that he had recently been in financial problems. Then Shane hired a private detective. It took some time, but the PI eventually tracked down the loan shark from whom Mike had borrowed money. The man acknowledged that Mike and Ethan had taken out a loan and had recently made a partial repayment with a diamond ring. Shane was infuriated. He wanted to face Mike right away, but I advised him to acquire additional proof first. We didn't want this to become another situation in which our word was against theirs. Shane labored tirelessly for weeks to develop a case. He obtained bank statements that showed big transactions from Mike and Tori's joint account around the time of their Las Vegas trip. He discovered credit card statements containing charges from casinos. He even obtained security camera footage from a pawn shop showing Mike selling the ring. Shane convened a family meeting after we had collected all of the evidence. He assured everyone that they were going to talk about the ring issue and try to move ahead as a family. Tori and Mike consented, possibly believing it was an opportunity for me to finally confess. I was quite nervous on the day of the meeting. Shane's parents hosted it in their home. When we arrived, everyone was already present. Tori gave me a chilly glance, while Mike avoided eye contact entirely. Shane began by thanking everyone for coming. He stated that the ring event had created a great deal of pain in the family, and it was time to clear the air. Then he dropped the bombshell. He knew exactly what had happened to the ring. The room became silent. Tori looked perplexed, as Mike turned pale. Shane then proceeded to put forth all of the evidence we had collected. He handed them the bank statements, credit card bills, and pawnshop film. He even had Ethan on speakerphone and reluctantly corroborated the entire tale. As Shane spoke, the expressions on everyone's faces changed: shock, astonishment, and finally rage. Tori fell into tears and asked Mike if it was true. Mike broke down and confessed everything. He said he never intended for things to get this far, and he was going to find a way to get the ring returned. Tori was devastated. She couldn't believe Mike stole her ring and then blamed an innocent person. Shane's parents were surprised and ashamed. They apologized profusely for questioning me. Mike left the house in humiliation after the encounter, while Tori remained behind, too unhappy to join him. Shane's father hugged me and apologized for telling Shane to make me pay for the ring. Shane's mother was in tears, begging for my forgiveness. In the days that followed, I got calls and texts from several family members. They all apologized for believing I was capable of stealing and for treating me poorly. Some others brought flowers or gift baskets as peace gestures. Tori called me a week after our meeting. She apologized for blaming me and for all of the hurtful things she had said and done over the years. She revealed that she was always envious of me and my friendship with Shane. She announced that she was seeking for divorce from Mike and asked if we could start afresh. I was cautious at first, but I could detect genuine guilt in her voice. I told her I forgive her, but it would take time to regain trust. She understood and expressed her willingness to put in the effort. Mike moved out of their home and into a modest apartment. When his boss discovered the gambling and loan sharking, he was fired. Last I heard, he was going to Gamblers Anonymous sessions and trying to change his life. Shane and I had lengthy discussions about all that had happened. He felt bad about not believing in me more passionately from the start. I informed him that I realized how terrible the situation had been and that I valued his assistance throughout. We also talked about how we would handle our relationship with his family going ahead. We decided that while we would attempt to preserve positive ties, we would be more cautious about becoming involved in family issues in the future. The entire event drew Shane and I closer together. We discovered how strong our friendship was and how we could count on each other even when others doubted us. It also made us understand the value of trust and honesty in a partnership. Tori stuck to her word about trying to better our friendship. She began inviting me for coffee or lunch, just the two of us. At first, our chats were awkward and stiff, but we eventually discovered common ground. She spoke openly about her vulnerabilities and the pressure she faced growing up in a rich family. I told anecdotes of my own challenges and how I started my career from nothing. Things gradually began to shift. Tori stopped making nasty remarks at family events or attempting to outdo me. Instead, she was nice and even defended me when some of my more distant relatives mentioned the ring incident. Shane's parents went out of their way to make me feel comfortable and included. They would frequently call to check on me and ask us over for dinner. Shane's father even sought my guidance on some business things, claiming he valued my opinion. The ring was never recovered. We found out the facts after the loan shark had already sold it. Tori was disappointed at losing her father's present, but she claimed the event taught her that worldly possessions were less essential than trust and family. Leah, the cousin who initially informed me of Mike's conduct, became a good friend. She expressed admiration for how I handled the problem and wished she had been bold enough to speak up sooner. We began having frequent girls' nights out with some of our other cousins. The incident also influenced how I perceived myself. I realized that I had always felt nervous around Shane's family because of my history, but standing up for myself and revealing the truth gave me greater confidence. I knew I had earned my place in the family through my own efforts, not because of wealth or prestige. Shane and I had a lengthy talk about boundaries and family dynamics. We agreed that, while we would retain contacts with his family, we would be more aggressive about our own needs and boundaries. We also decided to begin seeing a couples therapist to work through some of the remaining stress from the entire experience. In an unexpected turn of events, Shane's company offered him a promotion that required us to relocate to another state. After considerable contemplation, we decided to take it. We saw it as an opportunity for a new beginning away from the lingering unpleasantness of the ring affair. We received different reactions from our relatives when we announced our decision. Some were saddened to see us leave, while others recognized our need for space. Tori, in particular, appeared unhappy, but stated that she supported our decision. She pledged to continue working on our relationship long distance. As we packed up our house and prepared to leave, I thought about everything that had happened: the false charge, the family turmoil, and the discovery of the truth. It all appeared strange. I never knew that a misplaced ring could cause so much havoc while also leading to so much personal progress. I learned significant lessons about advocating for yourself, gathering facts before making accusations, and the power of forgiveness. I also learned that family dynamics are complex and that it is acceptable to establish limits, even with kin. Shane and I are enthusiastic for our new journey in a new city. We're excited to start a new life free of the shadows of previous family dramas. We intend to visit during the holidays and stay in touch, but we also want to build our own customs and social circle. Tori and I had a rather emotional last talk before the relocation. She thanked me for giving her a second chance and promised to be a better sister-in-law and friend. She even joked about visiting us in our new city to show that she could have fun without her nice clothes and pricey jewelry. Looking back, I could not have imagined how things would turn out when I published my first post. Life has a tendency of shocking us, and the truth can be stranger than fiction. While I wouldn't wish the experience on anyone, I am happy for the growth and adjustments it has brought to my life and relationships. My wife's sister tried to kiss me and now my wife is spiraling. Help me. Sorry for how long this is, teal.er at the bottom. As the title says, my wife's sister made a pass at me at a recent family gathering and I have no idea what to do. For context, I think my wife Jenna is absolutely gorgeous, but she has some really negative body image issues. This is in large part because of her sister Mary, who is very conventionally attractive, as opposed to Jenna's more unconventional but, IMO, striking beauty. Mary was a successful model until a couple years ago and now works in the fashion industry. In our early days of dating, when I would tell Jenna she's beautiful, she would always say, "Just wait until you see my sister." When I did finally meet her family, she would randomly press me for weeks to talk about her sister, whether I thought she was more attractive than her, etc. I always told her the truth, that I think Mary is attractive in a boring way, and that I think my wife is much more beautiful and interesting to look at. She wouldn't let it go until I confronted her about how uncomfortable it made me and asked her what was going on. This is when she told me that she always had a chip on her shoulder about her looks because of being compared with her sister growing up. They fell into the classic smart one pretty one dynamic their whole lives. She also said Mary had a habit of being flirty with all of her exes and warned me that it would happen to me eventually. She then started sobbing and begging me to not cheat on her with her sister, to which I forcefully said I would never cheat on her with anyone, let alone her sister. I've been crazy about my wife since day one and there's literally no woman on earth who could come close to her. I honestly didn't believe her about the flirting at first. I assumed it was just an extension of her insecurity, but I was wrong. Whenever we get together with my wife's family, Mary always finds ways to touch me and make little innuendos comments about me or my body. It's super uncomfortable for everyone, especially my wife, and I've called her out on it before. She'll cool it for a while but eventually start doing it again. It's been 6 years of this, and every time it happens my wife is upset for days and I have to do a lot of reassuring. On to the current problem. A few days ago we were at my MIL's birthday party and Mary asked me to help her grab some things from the garage. As soon as we walked into the garage, she turned and pressed me up against the door with her whole body and started trying to kiss me. I immediately pushed her off and asked her what the fuck she was doing. She started giggling and saying she was just doing what we both have been thinking, and kept insisting, "You know you want to." I told her she was out of her mind and ran out of there. I went straight to my wife and told her we were leaving. The whole ride home she was asking me what was wrong. I wasn't sure whether to tell her because I knew how much it was going to hurt, but I also thought Mary would probably try to spin it as me making a move on her, so I knew I had to just say it. I told her everything and she cried the whole way home. For the last several days Mary has been calling and texting my wife doing exactly what I thought she would do, even telling my wife that I said she, Mary, was the hottest girl I've ever seen, which I had to assure my wife a million times that I did not and would never say, even though she believes my account of the situation. She's been a complete wreck the last several days. She's hardly eating. She pulls away from my touch when I try to hug her or just hold her hand. She says she feels hideous and disgusting. And I don't know what to do. This is the lowest I have ever seen her, and it hurts to see how much she's hurting. I have no idea what to do to help her heal from this. Reddit, what should I do? Teal.er, my wife's sister tried to kiss me and this is triggering deep-set body image insecurities for my wife. How do I help her? Relevant comment. OP on his in-laws enabling Mary's behaviors and the golden child status. OP. My in-laws definitely enable her behavior. She's the golden child. They brag about her constantly. Even though my wife is literally a neuroscientist. Their mom was a pageant queen and she was their dad's much younger trophy wife. Honestly, we may have to go no contact with all of them. Update 1. I got a few requests for updates, so here it is. I first want to thank everyone so much for your advice. It was extremely helpful and gave me a lot to think about. I'm especially thankful for the folks that asked me how I was doing. I realized that I have literally never had a chance to check in with myself after these things happen, and I've actually been holding a lot of frustration and resentment about it all. I've been harassed for years and it has either been brushed off or it's been eclipsed by the impact it has on my wife. I don't blame her for it, but this has been a good lesson in me not burying my feelings for the sake of others, even for her. I also want to clarify a couple of things that came up. Several people asked about how my wife's family feels about all this, and I explained in a comment that her parents are toxic and treat Mary as the golden child, Even though my wife is a freaking neuroscientist, amazingly talented musician, speaks 3 languages fluently and another 2 conversationally. My wife and her family are seriously the only people who don't seem to understand how exceptional she is. I remember meeting one of my wife's family friends and talking to them about her research, and they said, "Oh wow, her parents just told us she works at a university." Whereas my parents literally introduce her as the family genius to everyone. It makes me so fucking angry to think about how her asshole family has stolen her shine her whole life. She's literally a Renaissance woman, but all they care about is looks and money. Some folks asked me why I would ever put myself in a situation alone with Mary given everything she's done. I have no good answers for that other than I never thought she would actually try to do anything. That possibility just didn't exist in my head. I realize now that I should have seen this would happen eventually, and that I should have been less concerned with keeping the peace and more concerned with shutting Mary's shit down before it escalated to this point. Hindsight is 20/20. Anyway, on to the update. The night I posted, I told my wife that if she wanted to try to repair her relationship with her sister, I would respect that, but that I don't feel comfortable being around her for the foreseeable future. I said Mary has obviously been deeply jealous of my wife her whole life because she is a hollow, ugly person whose entire value has an expiration date, while my wife actually has substance. I said that I think her whole family is toxic and has done nothing but put her down her whole life, but that only she can decide whether she still wants them in her life. I also told my wife that while I don't blame her for her emotional reaction, her insecurity is something that she needs to work on for our relationship to be healthy. What Mary did was sexual assault, and she's been sexually harassing me for years, but I have consistently put aside my own feelings about this problem because of how it affects her, and that has prevented me from getting the support that I need to. I told her that her reaction only serves to punish herself and me for her sister's behavior, and there's no reason to give her that kind of power. I also told her something that a commenter said that really resonated with me. The only people who have ever considered her second best are her and her family. Everyone else sees her for who she really is. She was crying the whole time and agreed that she needed to go to therapy to work on her insecurity. We were able to find a therapist who specializes in body image/self-esteem issues to work with her individually, and we're looking for a couples therapist too. My wife sent a message to her parents and sister that explained exactly what happened and told them she would reach out to them if she ever feels ready to repair their relationship. We blocked all of them everywhere, but Mary has of course been spamming my family and our friends with nonsense, claiming I attacked her, I'm a drug addict, I abuse my wife, all kinds of bullshit that thankfully nobody believes. My wife is still down in the dumps, but I can see that things are getting a little better. She's eating and sleeping more, and she's cuddling with me in the mornings again, which is nice. Now I'm planning a surprise getaway for us this weekend. We're going to one of our favorite places, and I'm going to wine and dine her and try to make her feel like the goddamn queen she is. I want to thank you all again for your help. You really helped me understand the severity of the problem, and again, thanks for helping me connect with my own feelings about all this. Y'all are the best. TL.dr, wife and I are going to therapy. We're going no contact with her family for the foreseeable future. I'm going to woo the hell out of my wife this weekend. Relevant comment OP on how he tries to be the best husband to Jenna and enjoying life together. The only genius thing I've ever done is marry her. I'm a pretty average dude TBH, so I have no idea how I snagged her. Sad to think her low self-esteem probably played a part, but I do work hard to be a good husband every day. Update 2. So I guess my original post got reposted onto TikTok and some other subs here on Reddit, so I've been getting tons of messages asking for updates. It feels like things are mostly settled, and I'm really hoping this will be my final update. First, I want to say that I've gotten so many questions about who Mary is, and I'm just not going to say. Suffice it to say that she's never been a household name famous, but she made a living solely on modeling for about a decade from what I understand. So she must have been popular enough that fashion people might know her. I really don't know how that whole world works. But it doesn't matter how many names you drop, you're not famous if you don't have a Wikipedia page. Also got lots of comments that, mostly, jokingly called me a simp, and I can't argue with that. I totally am a simp for my wife. She's the coolest. I hope you all find a love that makes you feel this way. Okay, I think that's it. Here is the actual update. My wife loved the getaway weekend. We had a blast, and by the end of it she said she felt like herself again. For a few days after we got back things were really quiet, so we were hopeful that Mary had finally given up, but I felt uneasy about it all. Many of you warned me that Mary would try to interfere with my work, and while I initially dismissed it, I figured I would reach out to my boss just in case. I've been working at the same company for almost 10 years and she's heard me vent about Mary before, so I didn't have to explain too much. My boss just reassured me that she knows my real character and would let me know if Mary tried anything. As you predicted, Mary did try to contact my boss a couple of days later, and the following is a recounting of what my boss told me. Apparently Mary said that I needed to be fired because I was a predator and claimed to have proof that I assaulted her. My boss said that was a very serious accusation to make and asked Mary to explain what proof she had. Mary claimed there was a camera that caught the whole incident and my boss asked her to send the video. Then Mary got flustered and said the police had it, so my boss asked her to send over a copy of the police report. Then Mary said it had a lot of private information in it, so my boss asked her to redact the private information and send it over. Then Mary said she didn't feel comfortable with that, and my boss told her that she could not take action against an employee based on word of mouth from a stranger. Then Mary shouted at her about victim blaming and hung up. Unfortunately, that was not the end of it. Last Wednesday, Mary somehow sent an email from my personal email account with a dick pic, not mine obviously, to the entire office. My best guess is that I must have left my email logged in on one of my in-laws' devices. She's definitely not smart enough to actually hack me. And I know this is completely beside the point, but of course she chose the weirdest looking dick I've ever seen. I played team sports all my life. I've seen a lot of dicks, and this was something else. It's honestly kind of funny to think about Mary googling gross penis, or something and sifting through hundreds of images to find just the right one. I had to apologize to everyone on staff and thankfully folks were surprisingly understanding. It's actually been kind of a nice bonding experience with my coworkers. I honestly didn't consider myself to be super well liked in the office, but it feels like everyone has been going out of their way to be kind to me and it means a lot. Anyway, at this point it was clear we had to escalate things legally. I really wanted to avoid it, but she forced my hand. My wife and I have a lawyer friend who helped us draft a cease and desist letter outlining her continued harassment and the material and emotional damage this is causing us. My wife then sent a message to Mary and my in-laws with a copy of the letter and made it very clear that we would pursue criminal and/or civil proceedings if her harassment continued. My wife's mom then called her crying and begged her to just let it go and leave Mary alone. My wife calmly explained that Mary is the only person responsible for this whole situation, and that their parents have always enabled her awful behavior. She also said something she later regretted but I think was pretty badass. Mary is going to stick you two in a nursing home and steal your money the minute she has the chance, and you deserve it. After the way her mom reacted, my wife is firmly settled on cutting off her family completely. This happened on Friday, and on Sunday Mary's best frenemy Anne sent my brother a message on Facebook to say Mary is going to leave us alone and to please not sue her. I told my brother not to respond, then just sat and enjoyed the idea that Mary was out there somewhere freaking out about the potential of having to actually face the consequences of her actions. It must be such a strange feeling for her. Since then, we haven't heard a peep from the grapevine. It feels like things are finally starting to go back to normal. My wife is starting therapy next week and will be starting couples therapy in a month or two. She wants to do some work on herself first. She's also taking a short leave from work to rest and recharge. I'm so proud of her for standing up for herself with her family and finally putting her mental health and well-being first. Thanks again to everyone who offered advice. This was a messy situation, but it definitely would have been messier without your help. Teal.er, Mary tried to get me fired, so we sent her a cease and desist. Now Mary's running scared. She and my in-laws are out of our lives, and we're doing much better without them. My wife is prioritizing her wellness and I am one proud simp. Update 3. I forgot about this account completely until today and logged in to see so many comments and messages asking for an update. It's honestly touching to see how many people care about this situation and want the best for me and my wife. This will be a brief update. I don't want to make this a regular thing, and the original situation has resolved enough that I'm hopeful this will be the end of the saga. Mary and my in-laws have pretty much left us alone. My MIL still tries to contact my wife every now and then, but she's made it clear to her family that if the first words out of their mouths aren't "I'm sorry," she isn't interested in a conversation. As you can see, the past 6 months have made my wife a badass. She has done some amazing work in therapy and her confidence is growing all the time. It's not just with her family. She's more comfortable asserting herself at work, with strangers, with friends, etc. She's even stopped putting up with some of my shit. To be fair, that shit is stuff like my leaving my socks everywhere around the house, but I'm seriously proud of her for telling me to cut it out. I'm becoming a more responsible and supportive partner because she's able to communicate her needs and expectations without feeling guilty about it. And I'm able to communicate things to her without intense emotions fully eclipsing the conversation. I didn't mention this in my earlier posts, but my wife does struggle with rejection sensitivity even outside of her family. Often if I brought up something that I felt needed to change, her emotional reaction to feeling like she did something wrong would be really intense, and instead of dealing with the problem, it would become about regulating her emotions. Now my wife has really good coping tools that allow her to talk about the problem without thinking she is the problem. And the biggest update, she's pregnant. We have a baby girl due in February. I am shitting my pants with excitement. We are going to love her so much and teach her that she is more than her beauty. She's going to have happy parents who love each other and work through issues as a team. The toxic cycle will be broken. Jenna's family doesn't know and she's not sure if when she'll tell them, but if she does there are going to be strong boundaries in place for how they can be a part of our daughter's life. And it'll start with family therapy. For now, she has one set of grandparents that will go to the end of the earth for her, and that's more than enough. My family has been absolutely incredible in their support and they are so excited for us. Things are looking better than they ever have. That's all, folks. Thanks again for your support on this wild journey. Til.er, Mary and in-laws have mostly left us alone. Jenna is a badass now. We're having a baby and soon I'll have 2 queens in my life. Captain Simp, over and out. New update. Hello everyone, I have come here for advice before and you were all incredibly helpful, and I could really use some support again. You can check my post history for the full story, but TL.dr, last year my wife, Jenna, and I had to make the decision to go no contact with her whole family. Her sister, Mary, 30F, sexually assaulted me. In-laws defended her, and after some legal wrangling they finally left us alone. The situation wrecked my wife's self-esteem and tested our relationship, but we made it through. Jenna and I had our first daughter in February. She's amazing and we're doing great. We ended up moving away from Jenna's home state, NY, to mine, May, to be closer to my family, and they've been incredibly helpful with the baby. We have not seen Jenna's family since cutting contact and blocking them everywhere, and we didn't tell them about the baby. Yesterday we received a letter in the mail from my MIL and FIL, no idea how they got our address. Apparently my FIL has been diagnosed with late-stage cancer and is being told he could be dead in weeks. In-laws went on about how sorry they were for the way they handled the situation with Mary. They also apologized for the way they've treated my wife her whole life. Again, check post history, but basically Mary was the golden child and Jenna was an afterthought despite being super accomplished. They ended by saying they recently heard about the baby through the grapevine and want to meet their grandchild. To me, the apology seemed genuine. They went into detail on what they did wrong, apologized and expressed remorse, and explained what they should have done differently. They said they hoped to earn our forgiveness with time and were willing to do family therapy to heal our relationship. Jenna is not having it. She feels like it's too little too late and doesn't want to respond. She also suspects that they're lying about FIL's cancer and just want to pressure us into reconciliation so they can meet the baby. It seems ludicrous, but I guess I wouldn't put it past them. I want to respect my wife's feelings around this, but I'm worried that if the cancer is real, she may regret not taking this opportunity for reconciliation before he dies. I expressed this to her but she is adamant and I haven't broached the topic since. My instinct is to wait a few more days until the shock wears off to talk about it again. I just don't know what the best way to approach it would be. I certainly don't want to force my wife to do anything she doesn't want to do, but I feel like she's not thinking clearly about this right now. It also must be noted that our baby is still struggling with sleep and we're both tired and emotional all the time, so I feel like this might be influencing how she feels about all this. What should I do here? Should I try again or just let it be? TL.er, in-laws are attempting to reconcile after claiming FIL was diagnosed with terminal cancer. Wife does not want to consider it, but I am worried she will regret it later on. Edit. People, stop being mean to me. I too am tired and emotional and my feelings are getting hurt. I am not forcing my wife to do anything. I brought it up one time. I know this is not about me. I don't personally care either way, I just want to support my wife. I intend to tell her I'm here to listen, talk about it if she wants to, but I fully support her decisions around this. She has a great therapist she trusts and I'll be here to support her however I can. Relevant comments. OP on respecting his wife's decisions on how she wants to deal with the possible family health situation if it's real. OP, to be clear, I will absolutely respect whatever decision she makes. I just feel like the news is so fresh and we're in such an emotionally complex place as it is that she may not be thinking clearly about it. A similar situation happened to a friend of mine and he regretted it for years, actually turning to alcohol pretty hard for a while after. My wife has worked really hard to improve her mental health and I worry about how the regret might set her back. Although I suppose if her family is actually lying, manipulating us, that would set her back too. I just don't know. Would it be terrible to bring it up again in a few days just to see if she feels differently? Edit. I've also thought about asking my parents to take the baby for a couple of days so we can get away and recharge. Maybe just getting my wife in a better headspace would allow her to think things through more carefully / less reactively. OP receiving advice on letting his wife lead the way of dealing with her family. She knows what her family is like all her life. OP, this was really helpful, thank you so much. I will give it time and let her lead the way. I hadn't thought about that, earn it with time thing. Like if he actually is about to die, what time are they talking about? And reading from other people that this is a common manipulation tactic makes me feel more strongly that my wife's instinct about them lying is correct. OP on letting his wife make decisions and don't bring their daughter into the mix. OP, I would never do this? Not sure what part of I would never force my wife to do anything she doesn't want to do isn't getting through to people, but I would never betray her like that. I've never gone behind her back and never will. We make decisions as a team and this is her call. I don't personally care if we never see them again. It isn't about me. I came here for advice on how to support my wife and hold space for her to talk about it. All I care about is her being okay. I have face blindness, and my BF's tests are overwhelming. How can I clearly communicate that this behavior is hurtful and unacceptable? Hi y'all, sorry for posting this. If it's not okay, I can delete it. I've been with my BF for almost a year now. I love him dearly, and he loves me too, I'm guessing, but there's one thing that's causing a lot of issues for us. I suffer from prosopagnosia, face blindness, which means it's really hard for me to recognize people's faces. I usually go by other characteristics to put a name to a person, like hairstyle, facial hair, marks, skin colors, accessories, etc., but it's still really tough. It's caused me severe anxiety and other mental health struggles. I'm lucky to have wonderful people around me though, who are aware and try to help. They'll introduce themselves when we start talking, wear something they know I've linked to them, or whatever. Usually my BF does this too, but sometimes he likes to test me and it's incredibly stressful. He shaved off his beard once, a few times he wore a completely different style of clothing, or changed his hairstyle, all without warning me. In those moments he won't tell me who he is, or say someone else's name, just to see if I'll figure out it's him. He'll make jokes saying he'll try to switch with one of his friends and see if I'll stay loyal. I usually do realize it's him, but it causes me a lot of anxiety. We've had big fights on this. He says he's allowed to change his look. I'm not a cartoon character. I ask him to warn me. Don't get me wrong, he cares about me, but I don't think he gets how stressful it is. How do I make it clear? We have a lot of great times together, there's just this bump. Update. It's hard to imagine I made this post 19 hours ago and now I'm in the middle of breaking up with him. I'm very tired so I'm going to keep this short. I went to talk to him, showed him this and told him he can't do it anymore. The conversation was, a lot. First he was angry I made this post, then he was angry I was taking it all so serious. Lots of apologies and so on. He again said he was just trying to make a tough situation more light. I said it's too much. He said I can't take a joke and I need to let him be him. That he always tells me when he's been joking and if he was really keen on hurting me he'd just do things and not tell me, so his telling proves he cares. That one made me feel uncomfortable. At one point he said he just wanted to test if it was real, because I could just be using it as an excuse to do anything. I left after that cause we were just going in circles. There was a lot of me making an issue of one small thing. I'm exhausted. He's still blowing up my phone with love and apologies, but you guys made me realize a lot. Thanks, really. I'm trying to stay rational about it but it's hard because I do care about him a lot. I'm gonna get a few hours of sleep. Thank you again. Relevant comments. Comment 1. He is messing with your safety. Does he not realize that? OP. I don't think he realizes how confusing it all is. There was a moment he did the opposite, acting all weirded out when I thanked him for a nice date, saying it wasn't him and though I knew it was, I still started to doubt myself. He did say it was a joke soon after but it caused such a panic. He hasn't done it again but it took me a long time to feel comfortable again. Comment 2. Making someone feel unsafe is not a joke. Gaslighting someone you care about is not a joke. Comment 3. Holy smokes, that's terrifying. Not to recognize a familiar face with a major change like that. That is like nightmare fuel. That your BF does it to you, multiple times on purpose is scary. I don't know if there is a way you can explain it to him if he doesn't get it. It seems he enjoys your panic. Which is not a good thing for a partner. If this was my partner I would get a tattoo or something. And I don't have any. OP, my dad actually got a tattoo on his arm for me, which is a great comfort. I hadn't realized how messed up everything is, until reading all these replies. Comment 4. Your boyfriend is basically abusing you in emotional situations. He thinks it's hilarious you struggle and get severe anxiety, which isn't normal, nor does it mean he cares about you. This is a huge red flag. OP. Abuse is a really big word, but I do agree it's not okay. I'm seeing him soon, we'll see how it goes. Update 1. Hi y'all, hope it's okay. I will post a little update. Things went batshit crazy. A lot has happened in the last days. I'm really grateful to you all, honestly. I wasn't aware about the real meaning of his pranks, and what it said about him and our relationship. I went to talk to him the same evening I made that post, with the intention of making clear he can't pull all that anymore. The conversation escalated. We talked for hours into the night and every day since. There's been a lot of messages. He got angry about the Reddit post I made, I showed him. Angry at you guys, angry that I couldn't take a joke and listen to strangers. Said things like he in the beginning didn't believe I actually suffered from it, and would use it as an excuse to cheat on him. That now he does believe, but, due to bad breakups in the past, he has a hard time trusting I won't use it as an excuse regardless. Said he was joking about it because he wanted to make a tough situation lighter and that's just his sense of humor. That if I loved him, I'd accept that. When I made it clear I was done, it got even worse. He began apologizing a lot. Said he didn't realize it was such a big thing for me. Again, didn't make any sense with all said before. In the same breath he said that he at least told me. To the people who thought he actually had planned to trick me by using one of his friends, I think y'all may be very right. To be honest, I was done. I do care about him a lot. Can't just shut that off, but it's never going to work. There's been many messages / calls / etc. He dropped some vague hints that sometimes he pulled pranks I wasn't aware of. I don't know if that is true or he's just in a bad place right now. He also came to my place to apologize again. But I suspect he didn't expect I'd immediately recognize him, as he didn't apologize till I said his name. He's not evil, but just very messed up. I blocked him everywhere, told him not to show up anymore and that a friend would give him his stuff. I'm going to delete this account soon, but I wanted to thank you guys for helping me realize it. I genuinely don't think I would have. I'm heartbroken, but a bit relieved as well. Thanks for all the support and kindness. Relevant comments. Comment 1. I'm glad you broke up. Someone who loves you shouldn't ever do that to you. Just curious about your condition. Do you also have issues with recognizing voices as well as faces? I can only imagine how hard it must be to deal with. OP, actually voices are one of the traits I go by to recognize someone. Voices, posture, tattoos, hairstyle, and so on. Thank you loads. Update 2. This is probably a bit stupid, but that boy has got me questioning my own mind. Either way, sorry if this is a bother. I broke up with my BF a few weeks ago. I had realized, in part thanks to Reddit, that some of his behavior was absolutely not okay, and when I tried to talk to him the conversation escalated to me breaking up with him. I have a pretty severe case of face blindness, prosopagnosia. It means I can't remember people's faces and go by other characteristics to try and put a name to someone. Voice, hairstyle, posture, etc. People around me know and introduce themselves when we meet and other things to make it easier. I have a lot of anxiety because of it. He used to try and test me, which gave me a lot of stress. Changed up his look without warning to see if I knew it was him, and a lot more. He called it pranks. He is a jokester. So we broke up. It's been a lot. He'd been calling or messaging non-stop with both apologies and non-apologies, till I blocked him. In moments of a lot of emotion I said things like I never wanted to see him again, and he'd reply that he was hurt, that I wouldn't even know if it was him and I was lucky he wouldn't do it. Made me feel icky. He contacted me again yesterday, through a new account, saying he just wants one more face-to-face conversation, if only to give him his stuff that is still at my place and get some closure so we can both move on. I said my plan was to get a mutual friend to bring it over to him. He was hurt. He did seem a lot more calm than before and told me we were together for a year, he just wanted one conversation after I suddenly broke things off. That he had some time to process now, etc., and that he doesn't understand how he suddenly, after a year of loving each other, became so evil I couldn't have one chat with him. But I don't feel good about it. My gut is telling me this will not be a good conversation. My worst fears are telling me he might play a trick to prove some point. AITA if I don't reply anymore, just say no. Edit. I didn't expect all these replies. I hope it's okay to respond like this. Thank you all, really. I think I knew already but somehow started to doubt myself. The past weeks have been a lot. I really appreciate and need these words. I'm ready for all of this to be over and done with. Also just a little thank you in general. Reddit's been a wonderful community and it's helped me a lot. Update 3. It's been a wee bit, and since I'm still getting messages about this, I thought I'd just give one big update for this. So more than a month ago I broke up with my BF because he kept pulling pranks involving my face blindness. I can't recognize faces and am dependent on other aspects to recognize someone, and even then it's still confusing. After that he'd been bugging me that he wanted to meet up, so we could get some closure. My gut was telling me not to, but I felt guilty. With you guys' advice, and my own gut feeling in mind, I decided not to go. I asked a friend, Roger, to go bring him his stuff and kept him blocked, including blocking the new accounts he'd made. Roger came back with a letter from him, to me. The letter in itself was apologetic. He even said he was grateful for our time together and took full responsibility. It ended with him saying he'd respect it if I chose not to reply or message. Honestly, a lot of very respectful words. I still decided not to get in touch. Still trying to get over the breakup myself. But I did appreciate it, till I found out he wasn't letting go like he said. Roger and some other mutual friends let me know he was asking them about me. A lot, if I had read the letter, if I was seeing someone else, already. And so on. Couple of days ago he showed up at my place. He was clearly not sober and upset. He just seemed so broken, so I, stupidly, let him in. For a while he was just being miserably nice, while I got him water and stuff. But the more sober, the more angry he got. At that point I messaged basically everyone I knew to come. I didn't think he'd hurt me, but I didn't feel comfortable being alone with him regardless. Among the many accusations of me not even having the decency to reply, that I clearly never cared about him and that I was a horrendous person, he told me I cheated on him and didn't even know it. So how could I blame him for not trusting me? I'm not gonna lie, I was trying to stay calm but failed. And I know I should have not lost my cool. I screamed at him, asked him what he was talking about. Apparently on a night out with him and others, he asked his friend Mike, who knows of my face blindness and has similar characteristics as my ex, apart from a different voice and smell, to swap out with him and kissed me. And I didn't know. I don't know if he's lying or not. But knowing I was drinking and in a crowded loud room, I know it's a possibility. Especially since Mike tried to kiss me another time, though then I immediately realized it was him and lost my shit at him. When I told my then BF, he was more angry than I had ever seen him, so IDK if the time was a plan as well or not. Either way Mike is a disgusting human. I know it's just a kiss, but it did make me sick to my stomach just thinking about how they might have played me. I told him to get out, he didn't. Luckily it didn't take long for some people to arrive and get him out. I'm endlessly grateful for the people I have around me. I'm staying at my parents' place now, took a break from work and am looking into therapy. My mom and dad, who got a tattoo years ago just so I would never doubt it's him, are treating me like a princess and reminding me of the kindness people deserve. Haven't looked into a restraining order, but might if it continues. Thanks to you all for helping me see what's right in this situation. Reddit has been a wonderful community I am very grateful for. I probably won't update anymore, as this is over and done with. But I'm glad I got to pour my heart out to y'all. Update 4. We broke up nearly 3 months ago. It wasn't pretty. There were a lot of things not right between us. Among other things, he kept joking with the fact that I have a severe case of face blindness. I wasn't perfect in this relationship either BTW, not trying to make him the villain. Usually I go by voice, obvious traits and so on. I'm lucky enough to have a lot of wonderful people around me who'll introduce themselves once we start talking, warn me if they change their looks or even wear something that'll help me, like my dad who got a tattoo just for me. But it's still hard and gives me so much anxiety. So maybe I'm imagining it all? I stayed with my parents and cousins for a while after the breakup, but since I'm home, I feel like he's still around. The first time, I went to a club with a friend and her BF, started dancing with a guy and went outside with him to get some air. The moment we stepped outside and I heard his voice, I knew it was him. I was so sure. I freaked, went inside again and left with my friend. I messaged him later and he denied it vehemently, telling me he was not even near there. That we can meet up and talk if I want. My friend says she's not sure. She was off with her BF and didn't see him. So maybe I'm wrong. My gut says it was him, but I can't trust my brain with these things. There's been more incidents like this since. If I go out, sometimes I just feel like he's there. Like I'll see a guy focused on me and will know it's him, but he'll deny it. Or someone will come to my job and I'll recognize the voice, but he responds so confused and I'll feel like a crazy person making a scene, so I just quietly give him what he needs. I'll go to the grocery store and a guy will suddenly be next to me. He won't even say anything to me, but the smell traits tell me it's him. But then later he denies it all. It's not every day, or something. Once a week, maybe not even that. But it's enough to make me feel so on edge. The thing is, I could be wrong. Maybe it was never him. I don't go out a lot anymore, unless I'm with someone. I keep my phone in my hand in hopes of snapping a picture to show to my friends. Looking into how to get a camera. I don't know what else to do, really. I'm afraid if I talk to others about it, they'll simply dismiss it. At the same time, he's still messaging me, just as kindly as when we first started dating. He says he's worried about me, that he wants to help. And I just feel like I'm going crazy. Maybe I am. Update 5. I have a quite severe case of face blindness, but have my own ways to get around, like all of us. But still, I can never be completely sure who's in front of me until they confirm it. I'm sure you know the feeling. Now I have had wonderful people in my life who make it so much easier for me. But have you had people who don't do that? My previous BF messed with me sometimes, and I sometimes worry he might still be. But it's hard to be sure, when I can't trust what I see. Sometimes I'm so sure it's him, but he'll deny it and I can never convince myself to be 100% certain of what I saw. Do you have any things you did to deal with people who messed with you? Or didn't you take your prosopagnosia seriously? New update. First, thanks to the mods for allowing me to post this update. I don't know if anyone will see this, but I keep getting messages about this, very kind ones, for which I'm grateful, and thought I'd just do a wee update. I'm not in the best place mentally, so I will keep this short. This will also be my last one, as Liv taken plenty of your time as is and don't really know what to do with the attention, though I'm extremely appreciative of all the support and advice. I posted here a while ago about how I wasn't sure if my ex was messing with me, and my face blindness, or if I was just being paranoid. I now know it's both. I really did feel like a crazy person. The day I made the post, I broke off contact with him again. I got a few more messages from him, all kind and concerned-ish. Even some mutual friends, and one girl I barely know, reached out saying they were worried because of what my ex told them. But here's the thing, I did manage to subtly make two videos, 2 different times, in which my parents could clearly see him. Honestly, I was an absolute mess. Since then I've also been staying with my parents again and took a break from work. We're trying to look into a restraining order, but it's not that easy. There's some redemption though. A friend did what I didn't have the balls to do and completely exposed him. Got some very angry messages from my ex after, in which he, among other things, said he just happened to be in the same place, but now I'm making him out to be some kind of stalker because of my insecurities. Doesn't explain why he didn't just say it was him though. Or how it happened at least twice in less than 2 weeks. That's where we're at right now. I wish I could tell you more. I'm kind of stuck right now. I have no proof about the previous times. Even more so, there's been moments in the past weeks I also thought it was him, and it wasn't. Either confirmed by video, or because I wasn't alone. Then there's been some times in the last weeks where I didn't manage to get any recording, photo. Though I am relieved to have some answers, I'm also heartbroken. I don't know how to process knowing there's people that'll abuse my flaws in this way. I feel incredibly paranoid and it's exhausting. I'm looking into moving away. At the same time, I'm hopeful this is the end of it, that him getting exposed will be the end of this. Multiple people have told him to back off and leave me alone. I'm happy to be home with my parents for now. I'm safe, thanks for all the advice. Relevant comments. Commenter, dude is an abusive psycho. Put him on blast. He has serious mental problems. OP, I'm gonna sound like an absolute idiot, but I still often feel conflicted about it. I wish he'd just admit to everything. There's a lot of things that feel uncertain and I'm having a hard time letting those go. Like, I only have proof about those 2 times. What if he's right and it was only those 2? Still wouldn't be okay, but IDK, either way, just hope it all ends here. My doctors told my husband and me that our baby has many birth defects. I want to abort, he does not. My doctors told my husband, 30M and I, 31F, that our baby has many birth defects. I want to abort, he does not. This was a planned baby and I'm absolutely devastated. Me and my husband met in college and have been married for 6 years now. We have one son who is now 4 years old. I know some people are gonna wonder, but yes, we did discuss our moral political views before even getting engaged and we're both pro-choice. When we were 21 and 20 we made a stupid mistake that ended in a pregnancy. We were both flat broke and not at all ready for kids. I decided to terminate and he fully agreed with and supported me. He loves our son so much and is an amazing father. He confided in me that he loved the idea of having a daughter as well. Luckily, we're in a good financial place, so I agreed and we started trying for a second baby. We conceived fairly quickly and were overjoyed. We also soon discovered that we're having a girl. My husband was so excited. As soon as he was told, he went all out and started to plan her nursery. He asked our son to help him pick which shade of pink he wanted, which crib to get, what the theme should be, etc. It was all so adorable. I don't want to reveal any personal medical history, so forgive me for being vague with the descriptions. At our last doctor's visit a few days ago, we were given the news that our daughter has severe birth defects. They think that she could possibly survive the birth, but any life that she gets to experience will be painful for her. There have been medical cases of babies with the same conditions to survive from early childhood to even the teenage years. These poor children suffer with so much pain and are uncomfortable their entire lives. They are very low functioning and need around-the-clock care as well as several uncomfortable surgeries to try and give them a better quality of life. We were both heartbroken and cried for hours together in the car. Then we drove home in silence. Neither of us said anything until my husband began to quietly mumble his thoughts. He was going on and on about how we needed to schedule another doctor's appointment so we know what medical equipment we'd need to buy for her, and we should renovate the nursery again so we could care for her more easily. He said that he'd definitely have to talk to his boss so he can take a longer paternity leave. He wants to be by her side in the NICU until we can take her home. He talked about how we'd have to ask his mom to babysit our son more often while she's a newborn. He even said that maybe we could sell one of our cars, move to a smaller house, and take our son out of private school so we'd have more money to pay for our daughter's care. I was silent until he asked me what I thought. I was blunt and said that I think we should terminate the pregnancy. Now I feel bad for saying it that way, but I was still frazzled from the news. This made him very upset. He began to cry and ask why I don't want our daughter, even with disabilities. I mentioned our previous abortion. He said it was different because it was unplanned and we had no way to take care of the child. Now we're in a pretty good place financially, so theoretically we could shoulder the cost of our daughter. I have a bit of personal history with this type of situation. My best friend in high school was at my house all the time because her parents were way too busy with her severely autistic older brother. They did love her, but she was pushed to the side her entire childhood. I told him this story. He said that we'd do better by our son and daughter. My best friend's parents were stupid for having a second kid after they already had a disabled one. He then seemed hopeful for a minute and asked if I was just afraid. He promised that he'd be by my side the whole time and we could do this together. I told him it's not about fear. Our daughter will be in pain constantly if she's born alive. It would be a short and painful life for her. I love this baby so much already, I don't want her to suffer like that. He began to yell that even if she doesn't live long, we could still pour our hearts and souls into making her life as fulfilling as possible. I didn't respond and he stormed inside. It's been a couple days now and he won't even look me in the eyes. He sits in the new nursery for hours. Our son is very confused. I know he's grieving, but I really don't want to go further with this pregnancy. I love him so much, I have no idea what to do now. TLDR, husband and I learned that our planned daughter has many birth defects that would devastate her quality of life. I want to abort in order to save her from an existence full of pain. My husband wants to keep her so we can love her for however long she lives. Relevant comments. My daughter has a 20-year-old autistic bipolar daughter, my granddaughter. There are 3 daughters in total, one older and one younger. The autistic child cannot self-entertain and will always have the mentality of a 6-year-old child. My daughter's marriage fell apart and the ex-husband wasn't around to take any responsibility. Plus, my daughter was rarely reimbursed for medical and dental out-of-pocket expenses. The oldest daughter, the glass child, was parentified so her mother could work nights. She now has gone no contact with her mother and blocked her everywhere due to her childhood losses. The younger child has lived in the shadow of the autistic sister and has many issues going on. My daughter can't leave the 2 of them at home because the older sister becomes violent. When toddlers, the youngest had to have her hair cut short because her autistic sister would pull her long hair out by the roots and rip her scalp all bloodied. It was awful. My daughter is movie star beautiful, but men who have professed their love for her and had wanted to marry her, but not the disabled daughter. My autistic granddaughter cannot self-entertain and is a Velcro person, so is always there. It's been a family tragedy. My daughter is a prisoner in her own home. My ex-husband would not help. I work full-time and had gone to school at night, so I was pretty much depleted. Plus, my autistic granddaughter is hard to keep. I love my granddaughter, but I would not wish her life or my daughter's life on my worst enemy. It hurts me to say this, but it would be a mercy to not bring this severely disabled child into the world. What a cruel thing to bring this unborn child into the world. The husband is out of his mind with grief and cannot see the whole picture. The wife needs to make up her own mind, even with the sad choice to divorce if it comes to it. To the haters out there, unless you have walked in another person's shoes, you cannot understand this catastrophic situation. I would also want to terminate. Can you guys talk to a therapist? Do you have time? OP's reply: we have a bit of time, but if we don't resolve this soon, termination will be impossible. Update: thank you all so much for the advice and kind words. I'm sorry I haven't responded to many chats and comments. I've read through them all. The empathy and compassion shown is truly touching. After I made my original post, my husband and I rushed to get a second opinion. Nothing changed and it was still our original diagnosis. Once I learned that, I scheduled the termination for as soon as physically possible. I didn't tell my husband at first. He kept on raving about how we could give her as much love in her life as we can. I feel bad for this now, but I snapped and angrily told him I was terminating the pregnancy. That I know how he feels, but I will not allow my daughter to suffer just because he wants to love her. He was very angry with me after I put my foot down. After he realized his pleading wouldn't change my mind, he didn't speak a word to me. It was like he refused to even acknowledge my existence. I was terrified that he'd go and leave me all alone with the scraps of our family. I tried to explain it to my son, but I think he still doesn't understand. Then, the night before the procedure, he stepped into my room and apologized for everyone and promised to be more supportive of me from now on. I was so happy and relieved I started to sob and he held me all night. My original plan was that my mom would drive me to the hospital, then once it's done a close friend would take me home. Since it was only the night before, he said he couldn't miss a full day of work, but really wanted to drive me home. I agreed to let him and then the procedure was done in the morning. My son is having a long sleepover with my best friend's family. I don't want him to see me like this. The next morning the termination was done. It went fine with only minor physical pain, but the emotional toll was crushing. After I was done, he didn't show up to get me. I waited for hours and he wouldn't answer any of my calls. I ended up having to call a friend out from work to take me home. When we got there, I saw just one note on the counter saying he can't do this. A few of our daughter's special toys were removed from her nursery. My entire life has fallen apart in a matter of days. I asked my mom to watch my son for a little while. I still can't contact my husband. Everything feels so pointless. Relevant comments. I'm a doctor and I work in an ICU seeing children exactly like the one you may have had. If I were in your position, I would have done the same thing. Let me be clear and say that nobody in your partner's position has a clue of the emotional toll that parents of severely disabled children go through. Everyone thinks they know what it would be like, but they're often wrong, and more often the parents of the child are struggling a lot. Whatever happens, FYW, I think you made the harder, but smarter decision. Who's to say your husband wouldn't leave the exact same way after seeing your daughter suffer alive in actual pain? Leaves you a note on the table one night, "I can't do this," and leaves you to care for her yourself. We couldn't save our 15-year marriage, because my wife friend-zoned me and wants a platonic companionship. My wife, 35F, and I, 35M, have been married for 15 years and we've been together for 20 years. We have 2 kids, 12, 14. We absolutely adore and work tirelessly to provide the best possible life for them. For the past 3 years, things have been somewhat bumpy. I understand that our kids are at an age where they require a ton of our attention and resources with school, band, club sports, and other extracurriculars, and I'm aware of the physical and emotional toll that can have on marriages. However, for these past 3 years, my wife and I have had very little intimacy and very little sex, and we've been trying very hard to work on that aspect of our relationship. This past year has been the most difficult and by far the darkest year in our marriage. We didn't talk very much, we essentially became roommates co-parenting our kids under the same roof. It was very depressing and very demoralizing. It was to the point where we began contemplating divorce, and it became very dark and gloomy in the household because of that. We began seeking help with both individualized therapy and couples therapy, and it seems to have helped some. Little by little we started to get along and started to have deeper conversations about what our marriage looks like and what we would love for it to look like. This is where it gets tough. As time passed, my wife started to tell me she no longer was in love with me, and that she only saw me as a best friend. That she only loved me in a very platonic way, and this was one of the main reasons she didn't have any desire for intimacy and let alone sex. This was very shocking to me, and quite frankly, I was devastated. I became angry and depressed, and I couldn't fathom the thought that I was no longer wanted or desired by the person I felt completely in love with. Things began to deteriorate again, and not long after, we were back to square one. I sat down with her one afternoon and had a heart-to-heart and began to ask questions about where the root of this problem lies, and her answer was I don't know, and that, I have built up resentment towards you but I don't know where it stems from. As you can imagine, this provides very little to no insight into how to approach this. I'm puzzled, I'm frustrated and I do not know what to do at this point. Currently, we've arrived at a place where she says that she has no sex drive and no desire for intimacy or connection. She says that all she wants is simply companionship, which basically means our co-parenting roommate dynamic. I asked her what I could possibly do or what is it about me that is so unattractive or undesirable, and her response is always I don't know. She stated that she does love me but it's not the same. That she has been feeling disconnected for years and that our marriage just takes up too much work. Her focus is only the children for now and that my co-parenting contributions are meaningful to her in our home. I'm at a loss and I'm mainly venting about my frustration. It's tough to realize that the person you love has no feelings for you. I feel like at this point I'm only here to contribute financially and as a parent. I feel like what she means with companionship is that she's comfortable with the convenience of having a good father for our kids and my financial contribution to the household. In regard to intimacy and/or sex, she basically told me that it's not something she's interested in, or wants at this time. She mentioned that the only way to get to a point for any of that is to be intoxicated, which is incredibly awful and very wrong. I told her I do not think forcing herself to have sex or be intimate by drinking or smoking is good and I declined to be a part of that, which to my surprise, it upset her and made her more distant. We're both extremely honest and transparent. We've never cheated on each other and we are always free to look through each other's phones, emails, socials, etc. And we hardly ever do. I asked her if there was someone else and she declined. Honestly, I believe her. We then peacefully went through each other's things and as expected it was clean. We've always been very forward, even with the hard topics, so I don't smell or feel any foul play or infidelity. Am I wrong for declining to only be intimate or have sex when she's intoxicated? I'm firm on my stance of not partaking in this only when I'm high or drunk sex because it doesn't sit well with me. I do not know how to help our situation and I'm starting to become a bit anxious and desperate. We're both fairly young and healthy individuals and good looking. We both have good standing careers and are good parents. I'm just not sure how our lives could have driven us to this point. I'd love some outside perspective on this matter and some insight on how to address something like this. It feels so awful to be unwanted and undesired by my own spouse. I hate it. My wife of 15 plus years is no longer in love with me and doesn't know why and now says she can only have sex while intoxicated or I need to settle for a platonic sexless marriage, and she doesn't know why that is, but it is what it is and I'm in need of insight or advice. Relevant comments, missing reasons. Commenters looked at his history and found they were swingers. We did some swinging in the past. That was fun for some time. We mutually decided to stop doing it and we have established it's not the case. When we were swinging, however, our marriage seemed to be in a good place. This is something we did disclose with our couple therapist and made sure to include it to make sure we're not neglecting an obvious potential issue. I will say, I did ask my wife if what she experienced during swinging is something that is affecting her view on our relationship and she said it wasn't. Our swinging experience was always together and it was very sex-driven. Nothing really emotional or poly. Truth is, I have to believe her at her word. I have no reason to distrust her. To date, she's always been very forward and never afraid of dealing things head on. No matter how painful. If this is a consequence of swinging, this issue existed long before the lifestyle. I agree that swinging wasn't a solution in the end. Never was meant to be. It was more of discovering or exploring if she felt any different. If that was the case, we agreed we would talk about it, and if we arrive at the conclusion that myself is the problem and she has no problem with other men, we would part ways amicably. However, this wasn't the case. She didn't like sex or intimacy there either. She was very much in control of that whole swinging situation. And yes, I went along with it. What gives? It felt very organic and it was her effort, if you will, to discover more and learn more about our current issue. I saw it as a means of learning if I'm the problem and was very much ready to accept that. It turns out it wasn't the case. 6 years of misery sound awful. I would very much hate that. OP on if this started when the swinging ended. Finally, a comment on the swinging topic with actual insight. You're absolutely right about the fact that the swinging experience had changes that will impact our marriage and lives forever. For example, the best thing swinging taught us, even above sexual exploration, was the level of transparent and open communication it requires. We would literally have mental orgasms having dialogue with such intentionality. We implemented that in all our lives and areas, including parenting with our children. She even agrees that we're thankful for that takeaway from our swinging. Honestly, I cannot stress it enough with people here. Yes, we explored swinging. However, it was actually a positive experience. When we decided to stop, it was because it felt natural and organic to just do so. In fact, we met with that couple who we meshed super well with the night before. We actually enjoyed the actual friendship and even spent time as vanilla friends. So it wasn't because of something negative. Wife mentioned that it certainly wasn't any better, and since she's not enjoying the sex, we both agreed there's no point to this. I agreed and we moved on, and we're still friends with those people because it's great. All that said, I know, more often than not, swinging causes massive issues. However, this was something we explored in pursuit of a solution to an issue that was present way before. I think of it as taking a practical approach to trying to solve the problem. Update 1. I wanted to give you guys an update of how the therapy session with my wife went this week. Not sure if this is helpful or not, but I took many of the responses/comments/suggestions from my initial post and put together some things I wanted to discuss with our couples therapist to help us navigate some of the core issues that may be affecting this situation. One of the main things that is the buzzword of this has been the term resentment, and it has been really eating me up inside knowing my wife keeps telling me she doesn't know why she's resentful or doesn't know why this is affecting her emotionally, mentally. I brought this up with our therapist once again and resurfaced the conversation about being married for so long, 15 years, and being together since we were 14 years old. Our long history of growing up and how having children when she was 19 years old, me 20, significantly changed the trajectory of our lives. We experienced severe poverty and many hardships in the process, and we essentially had zero social life for the past 10 years because we were so busy raising babies, 2 kids now ages 12 and 14. She followed up with tons of questions directly, mostly from my wife about her feelings towards this, and 90% of the responses were very our kids focused. It definitely felt like she was afraid of saying yes it sucked, because she would feel guilt or shame because it would imply she regrets the kids. I mentioned this in the session, and the therapist encouraged her to look at this outside of the lens of being a mother and to try to view it a bit more selfishly and individually, and it was very eye-opening. My wife mentioned that she was very frustrated with the fact that we did miss out on many things in life. She also was very clear in saying, I do not think I missed out on other partners or dating or partying, but I certainly lost all my friends. This was huge because one of the big pieces that has caused a strain in our lives is how siloed and isolated we've been, again busy raising kids. I followed up by reminding her that it's important to have good friends and to make time for herself and her friendships. For the past 3+ years, we've had multiple conversations about friends and how it is important to have them in life. Especially when you have similar peers that can help in many areas of life that perhaps we have no experience navigating, and even simply for enjoyment. It has always been something my wife avoids. Even though she's always been someone who needs that external stimuli. The main reason for her not investing in friends or even herself has always been the kids. Like I mentioned earlier in this post, 90% of the answers have to relate to the kids to some degree. At this point in our session, I started to feel like there was a common denominator, the kids, in most of the frustrations and problems she was experiencing. So I simply asked her, do you think you may be upset at me because I'm responsible for these kids in the sense that I got you pregnant so young? I wasn't ready, but she said that she was upset at me for that. She also followed up with the fact that she knows that's unreasonable because it takes 2 to tango. I did feel like it was progress because it kind of gave us something to work on and help alleviate some of these burdens, so we agreed to invest more time in nurturing good friendships both together and individually. Towards the end of the session, we began to discuss what actionable items we would take from this session. At this point, it was still all very ambiguous and blurry as to what the outcomes were. I was very direct and very forward in asking my wife what her plan is moving forward. Note, I had decided prior to the session that should my wife say the same thing about being a co-parenting roommate, that I would take the 180 approach and essentially do me. She started basically saying the same thing, that she doesn't have any desire to be intimate or sexual with me as of now, and that she loves me immensely and she feels bad for not being there for me, as mentioned in my first post. I also brought up the brief swinging that happened, to which for the 50th time said it wasn't a problem. I agree with her on this. This was something that was a mechanical approach for a solution to a problem that was very much in existence when we tried this. We, both, really have no issue with this. We know it happened, we tried it and mutually stopped and turned the page. I also brought up other life events that may cause resentment, and really we ended up not getting anywhere else as far as the root for resentment, which was discouraging. I then basically expressed to my wife that I will not be okay with that arrangement. I told her that I've really done everything I can and that this issue really has reached a point where it has nothing to do with me or requires me to do anything that I'm currently not doing. I was very direct and said that I will not be accepting this dynamic and that I need to be with someone who is actively involved in our marriage, Works towards resolutions and is very much interested in maintaining an active intimacy and sexual relationship. I expressed how I'm not going to be a convenience, and that there was more to life than being roommates and co-parents. I made sure she knows I love her dearly and that I do want this to work for the better. I also told her that I'm fully committed to this marriage so long as she is as well, and that if she wasn't, it's okay. However, I will not be a part of something where these efforts are not reciprocated. I told her I have no plans of leaving, and I do not want a divorce. However, I made it clear that if this dynamic continues, that divorce will be the only outcome. Of course, tears were involved and it was a very bleak and sad ending to the session. Still nothing was said and I walked out very discouraged and very determined to start working on the 180 as soon as we left the room. It's painful and very difficult because much of the 180 requires you to be very short and cold and transactional. The saddest part is realizing, this dynamic already is very cold and transactional. Here's where it gets very interesting. I started working on implementing many of the 180 recommendations that same day. I mentioned to my wife that, hey, things are going to be a bit different moving forward. I'm going to honor her roommate co-parent dynamic without reproach and that it should be no mistake that I'm not happy here and I am never going to be okay with it, but I am done working on it if she wasn't going to work on it. She agreed and went to bed. I started to build distance and started to basically focus on myself. Very short and transactional. She asked for help on some of her personal things to which I declined and it really shocked her. She was upset saying I was being petulant. I explained to her that she is now fully in charge of her own life and her own issues. We didn't talk all day and we only spoke when necessary. Few days I keep this going and she's very visibly upset and stressed. I typically react to that with gestures of help or nurturing, but I didn't this time. That night she was crying, telling me she's stressed and she thinks something is wrong with me because I'm indifferent. I simply listened, then I told her that this is the dynamic she proposed and that I'm simply, much like her, taking care of myself and focusing on myself. I'm not going to lie. It has been very hard to be cold and distant because, as I mentioned before, I love her and I wish I could hold her and love on her. However, I know this is somewhat manipulative in a way just to get her way and still keep me in the friend zone. So I've been staying the course. We're now going on a week of this 180 and let's just say, there has been many changes on her side. I think she is starting to realize there is more to me than just friends and co-parenting. I sent her a text a few days ago essentially itemizing bills and separating the financial responsibilities 50-50ths and she lost her shit. She basically told me it was out of left field, to which I responded, hey, friends go in 50-50ths and as your friend I expect nothing less. This was very eye-opening because it gave me a glimpse of how I'm really taken for granted and how her level of comfort and convenience at my expense is really overlooked. I pushed through anyway and basically told her that this is the new dynamic she asked for and that it's still a bargain, because she would have to be 100% if she was on her own. I'll wrap up with this. While the 180 has been working in many different areas, I am still very much sad about the overall situation. There have been many eye-opening statements being said and realization that have not been pleasant to encounter. It has also sparked new energy and new efforts on her side as well. She's definitely seeking to talk to me more often and while it's hard to turn down, I hope if things improve this continues to happen. I've also noticed that she's making more time for herself aside from being a mom, which is huge because she pretty much neglected herself for years. I'm very pleased seeing her be more herself. My hope is that as we work on ourselves, the marriage improves. There really is no telling at this point where this will go. We are very much cordial and amicable even to this day and that's a very good sign. Boundaries are set and expectations are very clear and I feel that no matter the outcome, I will be at peace with everything that has been done. We're still going to continue the couples therapist until we either rekindle our marriage or end up in divorce. I feel like having this unbiased third party really helps as a witness and as a guide through this. No matter what, I will always love my wife. However, I will not participate in a sexless, intimacy-less marriage because we both deserve better. Thank you all for all the kind words and recommendations and feedback. This will be my last post on this topic and I wish you all the best. TLDR. My wife friend-zoned me once to just co-parent at my expense, but I started the 180 method to try and find a solution because she doesn't want to work on us, which seems to be working on getting her out of her rut and helping me discover more about how she feels. Also, therapy is paramount and highly recommended to all couples. Relevant comments. Comment 1. So, I'm going to assume that your wife has a lucrative job and you are both going 50-50ths on childcare, as you both work and share children. Because otherwise, this approach is just plain financially abusive, and if you're planning on saying I won't pay the bills unless you have sex with me, sexually abusive as well. Assuming that is the case and you aren't a total POS, I'm actually interested in how this works out for you. I feel like I'm in an unstated, similar situation. We both work and have blended finances, but we don't go to bed together or eat together, have barely any intimacy, a kiss or two, hugs every couple days, and spend maybe 8 hours a week together, just the three of us, him, me, and the toddler. Even less, just the two of us, maybe 3 hours a week. Otherwise, he is on his game, or out playing sports, watching YouTube, or whatever else he does. It barely feels like a friend situation, let alone a marriage. I'm curious how she handles it, as the spouse that presumably was pulling away first. I hope you keep us updated. OP, yes, we both have degrees, good careers, and while I make significantly more money, her salary is very proficient and above average. The 50/50ths was not to cripple nor hurt her financially, that is cruel, but mostly to send a message on what a roommate dynamic looks like in the real world. I really dislike how people immediately jump to conclusions about the finances as a way of manipulating her. It's not the case at all. Plenty of money left over after bills. However, 50/50ths means she has less whatever money, and the understanding that roommates share everything equally. Prior to this 180 approach, we did everything together and with our kids. We always saw ourselves as a unit that does things together. Both alone and with the kids too. That's changed now, where I'm choosing to focus on more independent types of pastimes and focus. That is what has sparked her reaction and realization of there's more than just roommates here. Comment 2. How does one dump half of the household expenses on the other person if they share a bank account? Or are your finances kept separately? Just curious how this would work if applied to my life. OP, excellent question. We shared everything. The proposed 50/50ths was suggesting we place the necessary amount to pay bills in the same account, and any leftover money can be deposited to a new account. I think this is why she was very upset. She felt a huge loss of control knowing she won't be able to monitor my finances. Also, she felt a huge loss in her leftover money with this arrangement and saw that I would keep significantly more of my own. This is still being worked out because I think she is calling my bluff here, but my plan is to notify her next week as I modify my direct deposit and open a new account. It will definitely be more real there. To be clear, for all the trolls here, yes, she will have less leftover money after responsibilities, and it's still enough to live on. Example, for reference. Assume I make $3,000 a month, she makes $1,000 a month. Responsibilities are $1,000 a month. So she'd contribute $500 and I would contribute $500. Where before she would contribute only $250. This is the last comment I'll add regarding money and finances. She's fine and she's not hurting. I promise. When asked what if she leaves for another man, interesting. She has no shortage of men hitting on her, and we're by no means jealous people. So I've witnessed this multiple times, and her reactions are somewhat indifferent. I will say, if another man for her was the answer, she'd tell me, or she'd have some inkling maybe. There's no telling, but I think the problem is deeper than superficial attention from a different person. You might be right, and if this is the case, so be it. However, I'll live with peace knowing I left no stone left unturned. Crazy thought, I know I would be disappointed and saddened if she did leave for another man that would accept the bare minimum. But I'd also feel at peace knowing it's not all my fault. I know I'm responsible in some way to some degree. That's just marriage. I know sadness and depression will creep, but we'll both overcome. But if this does happen, at least there will be clear reasons and clarity as to why it did. Also, I know for a fact that she wouldn't cheat. We're both very blunt, open and transparent. She would definitely tell me that she wants to step out on our marriage before it actually happens. As would I. We owe ourselves this respect for each other, and we actively practice it. New update. I debated for a long time on whether to submit an update on this matter. A few significant changes have taken place, and I felt it would be good to not only share with you, but also to allow myself to process all of this in a uniform way. We're now almost 9 weeks in on the 180 method I mentioned I was starting, and it started to render some positive reactions from my wife. I explained in the previous post that she started to notice things that she previously took for granted, started to ask more about my whereabouts, and also started to notice I would go out with the kids more often without her, and she started to invite herself, to which I didn't decline. So much has changed, and it has changed for what seems to be for the better. This past Memorial Day weekend, my wife asked me if I wanted to go out for coffee because she wanted to talk to me about something. This was huge, because I can't recall the last time my wife asked to talk to me about something important. I must admit, I was very nervous and worried about what this could be about, and my mind was racing with the plethora of scenarios of what it could possibly be. Of course I agreed, and we took some time away from the kids to have this conversation at a local coffee shop. The talk was very constructive in nature. There was a ton of insightful information about herself that helped me further understand where she is in life both emotionally and mentally. We summarized what the core issues we are encountering are and she asked me for help. This is new and I cannot tell you how excited I was to hear something so sincere coming from my wife who for the last 2+ years has been absent. So after she was through sharing all her thoughts, I proposed a plan that I felt was right for us. This is something that I had been thinking about these last few weeks and I was planning on bringing this up in a few months if I noticed that things were not changing for the better. This date felt like the right place to share it since it goes hand in hand with what she talked about, and it also relates to the help she was asking me for. I started by first acknowledging her feelings and her concerns. I told her they are valid and how she feels is personal to her and that I care that she feels this way because I don't like the thought of her being sad or depressed. I also told her that my goal still is and will always be for us to reconcile and be the happily ever after we vowed to be for each other and that my love for her is as strong, if not stronger, as it was the day we said I do. I continued the conversation by telling her how I felt about the whole situation, read my previous posts for details, and how it affects me every day. I also clarified some things that she mentioned she was feeling because I have been very distant and monotone, transactional, lately. I explained to her that I was very much trying to protect my feelings and emotions from the rejection and neglect and that it wasn't personal. It was simply me safeguarding myself because I cannot control her, I can only control myself. This was a perfect segue way to the core of this approach, which is focused on self-accountability. I told her that for the longest time I was always working hard to make her happy and do things that I knew she enjoyed or wanted. However, I was always met with rejection and disappointment which caused a load of stress on me. I explained to her that I had to make a change for myself. After all, I can only control myself and make the changes that I want for myself. I mentioned how I was starting to implement new habits and routines that help edify me all while still executing all of our shared responsibilities including parenting, finances, and daily living activities. I explained that the goal is to continue to improve myself both as a husband and father, learn more, and be healthier, among other things. She was very receptive to this. She told me that she sees what I'm doing and that she is proud of the changes she has seen. She also told me how she's starting to realize that she feels left behind and that much of the things that have affected her negatively are her own fault. Toward the end of the conversation, which was about 3 hours, there was a very high spirit of reconciliation in the room. I told her that my goal is to ultimately make this work, however I was very clear that I was not going to live under the current circumstances. I told her that my heart wants her to be happy even if it means elsewhere and that I also deserve to be happy myself. I also explained that I do not want our children to grow up thinking this was okay or normal because they deserve better as well. She told me she doesn't either. She told me she doesn't know what to do, to which I replied, let's set some clear goals. However, the goals will be for ourselves, not for each other. So here is what we established. We are in charge of our own happiness. The key here is that she's not responsible for making me happy, and vice versa. We both need to seek what that personal plan looks like individually. Also, we're both encouraged to include each other in taking those steps if we want, but it is not required. We are in control of our own individual lives and our own journey. This means we're both responsible for finding the resources necessary to grow, change and heal. We can definitely help one another when help is requested. However, unsolicited advice or help will not be rendered. We are responsible for communicating. This ensures nothing is left unsaid. If it was never brought up or discussed, it never happened. We're not mind readers and we need to take ownership when we fail to communicate. Make a list of needs and wants. This gives us both clear directions about meeting each other's needs. This also gives us a choice as to what we choose to do, compromise on, or decline to do. This list also will not serve as a checklist for accountability. We made it clear we would not be bringing this list up for the purpose of arguing. And it was up to the other person to use the list as a tool for growth, transparency or clarification. We concluded that it was up to us to decide if we will be happy doing these things for ourselves because we care, not to simply check a box. This was very important in order to establish long-term habits and not short-term band-aids, because you cannot make someone change or do something they don't believe is important. Established a deadline, Memorial Day 2025. At the end of the conversation, we concluded by setting Memorial Day 2025 as a hard stop to evaluate our lives and our progress. We agreed we would do this with the clear understanding that we will independently decide if we are happy here. If we determine we aren't happy, we will be getting a divorce. We would also both assume full responsibility for what happened should we get divorced. For example, if needs were not met, it would mean my partner chose not to meet them. This places full responsibility on each other in all areas. The whole process requires that if needs were not met, the next question should be, did we do everything to address this issue? If yes, then we will have a clear conscience of what transpired and know we left no stone unturned. If, however, we didn't do everything to address the issue, it will mean the issue was not important enough for you or didn't care to meet those needs. This goes both ways in all areas, like everything else. We established that the main motivator for change should be ourselves, and that if we did that, we would in turn begin to see beneficial changes towards each other. The goal is to ensure that everything we are doing for one another to meet each other's needs is being done because we want to do it for our spouse, not because she asked. Instead, it was done because I know it makes him/her happy and I love seeing them happy. I felt it was important to mention to her that we are no longer required to do anything for each other. It is now more of a I want to do these things for each other. Ultimately, I felt the conversation was very positive and productive. Many tears were shed and lots of hugging ensued. I know this doesn't mean or guarantee anything, however, this has never happened before and I can honestly attribute it to the 180 method. I cannot give any more insight on this method other than it's the only thing I did differently and something new happened for what seems to be better. I've decided I will conclude and will refrain from this method moving forward as the plan now has changed. I'm planning to devote myself entirely to not only myself and my growth but to also work on her needs and wants because I want her to be happy by my side. She said and agreed she would do the same for herself. We agreed we would help and build each other wherever we request for it and that we will be approaching this as a team. As of today, some of the biggest changes I have noticed are her commitment to therapy and mental health. She is taking some antidepressants that are helping her. She is also more confident and in a far better mood more frequently. We have started to explore more ways of intimacy in multiple areas such as physical touch and words of affirmation. Sex is starting to make an appearance, which is exciting. Side note, sex was very awkward to start when you've been abstinent for so long. We've also started to work out together, which is great, and have lost weight, which is also very exciting. Overall, communication has improved, and I cannot wait to see where this leads. I hope this helps someone out there. I'm still very much interested in your feedback and thoughts on this. You all have been a huge help in giving me hope and insight into this tough journey. Trolls aside, many of you have really been instrumental in my journey both emotionally and mentally. I will not be providing any more updates until Memorial Day next year. I think it's now time to keep focusing on myself and start working on all the new opportunities that hopefully will arise with my wife. I wish you all the best in life and your relationships with those you love. TLDR, our marriage took a turn for the better after the 180 method and we're now working on ourselves, each other, and rekindling our marriage. We also set a deadline for next year to either remain together or get divorced. My husband abandoned us to see the Grateful Dead's final show, leaving me and the kids broke. I've decided to plan our divorce. Am I the asshole? My husband is a deadhead. His entire identity is built around this band and he's seen them and their various incarnations over 50 times. Normally I don't mind, but 2 years ago I was in an accident that left me unable to work. I now receive a tiny disability check once a month for it. He works, but it hasn't been easy with the cost of everything skyrocketing. My disability check doesn't even cover the full cost of our rent, even though our rent is the lowest in our area. Long story short, Dead & Company is made up of what remains of the Grateful Dead, and this is supposed to be their last tour. We live on the East Coast, where he's already seen them twice, which was already more than we can afford. But a few days ago he took out a loan and bought tickets to go see their final show in San Francisco along with round-trip air and hotel and whatever else he needs out there. Me and the kids are left with $10, some pocket change, and what feels like a very big fuck you. School starts back in a month and the kids both need school supplies and clothes. I could name 1,000 things we need, things that we're going without while money is tight, but this is what he chose to do. We're not going to starve over the weekend, but I don't even have enough money to go get them a pizza while their dad is having a blast on the other side of the country and hanging out with his online deadhead fam. I understand that this band means a lot to him and I tried to be supportive of that, but I feel like he's crossed a line here. He refused to talk about how much all of this is costing us, but when I looked up the cost of concert tickets, flight tickets, hotels, transportation and food, the bare minimum figure I get is still around $1,000. It could very well be and probably is a lot more than that. I've supported him through a lot of things, but this weekend, while he's off having fun and leaving us to fend for ourselves, I'm slowly planning my divorce. I'm playing nice while I get all of my ducks in a row, but this is it for me. I'm tired of watering down essentials like shampoo or laundry soap, living off rice and beans just for him to turn around and take out a loan so he can go to a show all by himself across the country. Edit to say I commented somewhere below to let everyone know the current plan. Apologies if you have to scroll to find it. OP adds an update to a deleted comment. You guys, I wish I had the time to thank you all individually for the overwhelming support I've received here. I really was not expecting that when I posted. Even though I'm dealing with something so fucked up, I feel so much better than I did a few hours ago, knowing there are so many decent and kind people out there, so thank you for that. I mean it. As for everything else, divorce is inevitable. He might not be a total monster, and I'm sure on any other day I would have been able to tell you 1,000 different things that are good about him, but this is a huge betrayal and I just don't see how we're going to come back from that. We're only barely making ends meet now, and this one single selfish act of his leaves us thousands of dollars in the hole overnight. I'm occasionally capable of small miracles, but pulling money I don't have out of my ass isn't one of them. It's the weekend now, so I won't be able to even think about speaking to a lawyer until Monday at the earliest. I wish I could say I'm packing up now, but the reality is I'm stuck here, at least for a little while. The $10 I have in my account doesn't go very far these days. I'll have money again on the 1st, so tomorrow I'll be packing just the essentials, birth certificates and the like, and taking them to my friend's house for safekeeping for now. I'll also be calling my landlord to see about having my name removed from the lease agreement. I'm not going to tell my husband I'm leaving yet though. He's going to come home and tell me what a beautiful experience it was. Tell me how much he wishes I could have been there and how he'll take me one of these days and make it up to me eventually. And I'll smile and play along for the next 2 weeks. I'm not sure where I'm going yet, but I do know I'm not going to pay 3/4 of the rent just to be immediately broke again and have the lights and water and phone all turned off a few days later because he put us in this financial pit. I hope his social media fam are impressed enough by his presence and Instagram stories to make all this worth it to him. I hate it. I can't even begin to explain how hurt and shocked and tired and angry I am. I'm also numb. I don't know how it's possible to feel all this at the same time, but hey, here I am. Thank you though from the bottom of my heart. And for the handful of pecans wringing their hand about me being a leech and sucking the joy out of his life. Keep in mind that I worked from the time I was 16 up until I got hurt, and there were plenty of times throughout this relationship where I was the breadwinner. I provided for him during those times because that's what people in relationships do for one another. I'm very sorry you've never cared enough about someone else or had anyone care about you to understand that. I draw disability now because I paid into a system that was put into place to do for people exactly what it's doing for me right now. Edit. I appreciate the offers, I really do, but if you need to donate to anything, please donate to your local animal shelter or food closet or a needy family in your neighborhood. This blew up way bigger than I thought my rant was worth to anyone, but the kids and I are gonna be okay. We're leaving tonight to stay with a couple of friends. Everything is moving very quickly now, it's sort of surreal. OP updates the original post update. I wasn't expecting I'd need an update already, but he knows. Someone here decided to share my vent elsewhere so he saw it on Facebook. He's angry that I've made him look like an asshole. I told him all I did was talk about it without naming him. And if people decide he's an asshole based on his actions, he's got no one to blame but himself. I'm so nervous, I'm shaking and I feel like I might vomit. Some friends have offered to come help me pack and let me and the boys stay with them until I can figure out something more permanent. Edit. Also, please don't try to send me, or anyone pretending to be me, pretending to collect on my behalf, anything. We're in good hands right now and we're not going to go without. I figured, since this whole thing blew up today, I might as well tell all of my friends what's going on and they've really pulled up for us, so we're definitely going to be okay. Relevant comments. Comment 1, divorce him. He has made it clear he doesn't care about you or your kids. Anyone that's selfish needs to be held accountable and the only way to do that is by leaving him. OP, I'm finally realizing this. He's always been a bit selfish, but usually it's smaller things like buying one of his fam birthday rounds with our last $5. We were already struggling because his last 2 East Coast shows really set us back hard. He missed work for both those shows, but we could have skimmed because he used his PTO for those shows. But not only did he take out a loan for San Fran, he has no PTO left and he's missing 3 days of work, which means his next paycheck is going to be super slim and we'll have a new loan payment to make. I'm expecting this to set us back at least 2 or 3 months, but probably more. The kids go back to school in a month. The youngest had a massive growth spurt and literally none of his clothes fit. He's got a single pair of jeans, 2 pairs of shorts, and I think 5 t-shirts that he can still wear. I have no idea how I'm going to do this, but I'm tired of making all these sacrifices just so he can go do whatever he feels like. Comment 2. That is shockingly bad. He doesn't care if you and his own children are low on food and necessities. If he's gotten this low, who knows what he will do in the future, and you said he's always been selfish. This goes beyond selfishness and I agree with all the other comments about divorce. There's no going back from this. At least that's my opinion. I wouldn't be able to ever see him the same again and I'd be absolutely heartbroken. I'm sorry he did this. Don't let anyone downplay his actions. OP, I keep going back and forth between heartache and rage. We've been together for almost 20 years and I cannot believe he would stoop so low to just leave us like that. Life feels so unreal right now. I have a doc appointment this week that I'm gonna have to call and cancel first thing Monday morning because I don't have the money for it anymore. This is so fucked. It's 8 in the morning and I didn't sleep at all last night worrying about this stuff. I can't wrap my head around it. Update. I was injured in a work-related accident that has severely affected my mobility, and this process has been ridiculously slow, in part because my lawyer told me we needed to know how well I might expect to recover and a slew of other things, and those things require time and doctors. I've been basically guaranteed a fairly large settlement. The problem is I'm planning on filing for divorce tomorrow. I had a fairly solid career before my accident while my husband sorta skipped from job to job. I was fine with that at the time, but I'm on disability now and my husband has made a series of increasingly awful financial decisions that, well, let's just say they're bad and I can't stay married to him anymore. Are either of us entitled to alimony? Will he be entitled to any of this settlement when it comes through? If I collect child support from him, is that going to have any bearing on my other case? I'm calling my attorney and maybe a divorce attorney tomorrow if my current attorney can't do it. Hopefully he can recommend someone, but I don't know how long it'll take to set up a meeting and I guess I just wanted to ask here first so I'll have some kind of heads up. Married almost 20 years in South Carolina, if that matters. My accident was about 2 years ago. He's never acted as my caretaker or anything because I stayed at my mother's home with our children where she did most of the caretaking when I actually required it. Relevant comments. Comment 1, he shouldn't be, but this is something you should talk to your divorce lawyer about. They'll have far more information and the steps you will need to take to protect yourself and your kids. This is a little above Reddit's pay grade. OP. I'm planning on doing that ASAP. I'm just very nervous and freaking out a little because of course everything blew up over the weekend when all of the offices are closed. 9 a.m. can't get here fast enough. Thank you though. Comment 2. Congrats on moving on. It's never easy. I think that the settlement payment should be separate property if received after the legal separation. Filing date. When you file, you list community assets, debts and separate property/debts which include things you had before the marriage and had after the separation. I would think that since you don't have a judgment or payment yet, you should be entitled to that as separate property. OP, thank you. It's been nerve-wracking and kind of scary. When you file, you list community assets, debts and separate property/debts which include things you had before the marriage and had after the separation. This part scares me. A few days ago I found out he'd taken out a loan for personal reasons. I have no idea where or how much it was for, all I know is I didn't get a dime of it. I tried to guesstimate how much he got based on his plans, but I've been told by others that number is likely way off. I'm worried that he's done this before, because while he makes decent money, we've been so broke and barely scraping by. After bills and stuff he should have at least $500 left over every month, more if he's had any raises since starting, but we can't even afford the basics anymore. So if it turns out he's been getting credit cards or other loans and owes a ton of money without my knowledge, am I on the hook for that? Even if I didn't benefit from it in any way? Comment 3. Unfortunately, most likely the answer is yes. Sign up for a credit monitoring service and run a credit report. Better yet, sign up for 2 accounts, one in his name. You'll be able to see what loans and credit cards are taken out and account payment history and balances. And importantly, lock your credit so he can't take out more cards or loans. You'll have to lock in with all 3 credit score companies. Do this now. I found out I was pregnant with my 4th child not long after divorcing my husband. I'm conflicted about whether I should keep this baby. This is long. I'm sorry, I've sort of written a novel here. I wanted to post this in a relationship advice group, but the subject matter isn't allowed. My ex-husband and I were married for 10 years, although the last 2 were spent in variations of separation. We've been divorced for roughly a year. We have 3 kids, 10, 8, 5, I'm pregnant with our 4th baby. I don't know if we'll actually be parents to 4 kids or not. I'm so conflicted. We are so conflicted. There was no abuse or cheating in our marriage, although he did sleep with somebody else during our separation. There are a variety of other reasons why we ultimately got divorced. After the initial feelings of failure and heartache, and there was an immense amount of heartache on my end despite being the one who filed for divorce, we were able to get along pretty well. It becomes platonic so quickly, and it's like when we remove the romantic and married relationship from the equation, things got so much better. We split time with our kids 50/50. That's really hard for me because being a mom is such a huge part of my identity that I still sometimes struggle to know what to do with myself during his time with the kids. Ultimately, I'm happy that he's a loving, involved father, and I'm glad that they do spend half their time with him, even if I still sometimes cry over not being with them all the time. We still do things together as a family sometimes. We sit together at our kids' activities, things like that. He has a girlfriend now. She seems nice. He met her not long after our divorce was finalized. It hurt. I cried way too much over it. He waited over 6 months to introduce her to our kids, which I was thankful for. My kids like her. Our youngest child was unexpectedly admitted to the hospital not long ago. He had surgery. In the grand scheme of things, it was a pretty minor surgery and he's absolutely fine now, but this is my baby and he had to spend multiple nights in the hospital, so this was a big deal for me. My ex-husband was there the entire time, being a great dad, being a supportive partner to me as I worried over every little thing. We spent all those nights in the hospital together and I remembered why I married him. He was always able to be the strong, level-headed rock for me. He was this safe person who I knew would take care of everything and protect me. When we were in the hospital, he told me that I'm the most important woman in his life. When our son was discharged, my ex-husband came back to my house. My baby was home safe. Our other 2 children were excited to be home after staying with my husband's sister for several nights. We were all together at home like a family again. That night after our kids were in bed, we had sex. I hadn't been hoping for it or planning it. It was just like as soon as the kids were tucked away in their rooms, we were having this intensely passionate, needy, amazing sex that we shouldn't have been having. We went to sleep in my bed and at some point in the middle of the night we had sex again. The next morning we both decided our emotions with the whole situation with our son just got the better of us. We said we didn't regret sleeping together, but that's all it was, and we were just going to go back to our normal divorce lives. We wouldn't make it awkward, just move on. Then I found out I was pregnant. We didn't use a condom. I don't even have condoms in my house anymore. I'm not on birth control. I haven't been since we divorced. I haven't needed it since I haven't had the time or interest to start dating again. I really wanted to be single for a while. I know I was ovulating when we slept together, which was probably a contributing subconscious factor as to why it happened. My body sees him being a good dad to our kids and it wants another. My cycle is like clockwork and we've always conceived on the first try every time we've tried to get pregnant. Our first kid was not even a try. It was 2 weeks before your wedding you find out you're pregnant and spend your honeymoon with morning sickness surprise. So now I'm about 8 weeks pregnant. I've known for about a week. I just told him this past weekend. I didn't know if I would tell him at all. I realize now that I only told him in hopes that he'd tell me what to do and figure the situation out for me. Only he didn't. I know it makes no sense to have a baby with somebody I chose to divorce. I don't need a 4th child. Why can't I let go of this though? Update 1. I posted about a week ago. My ex-husband and I have been divorced for about a year. We have 3 kids, ranging from 10, 5 years old. We have gotten along great since the divorce, better than when we were married. It's almost like we're friends, can do things with our kids, and enjoy being around each other. About 2 months ago, our youngest unexpectedly ended up having surgery and spending several nights in the hospital. He's fine now. My ex-husband and I stayed together with our son the entire time he was in the hospital. When he was discharged, my ex-husband came back to my house, or former family home, at our son's request. He was just supposed to spend a few hours there. Help our son get settled, then go home. However, I guess all of the emotions and being together as a family in our former shared home got the better of us and we ended up having sex twice that night. Now I'm 9 weeks pregnant. I wasn't on birth control, was on it until after our divorce was finalized, but have been intentionally remaining single for a while and not involved with men in any way, so was giving my body a break from birth control. Initially we were undecided about what to do, but as of last weekend we made the decision together to have the baby. It feels sort of crazy to me. Definitely not a situation I ever imagined I'd find myself in. I already picture this baby looking just like our other kids. I guess that's why I struggled with the idea of not continuing with the pregnancy, which I know isn't really a valid reason to have a baby. This is probably the last baby I'll ever have. I'm 39, so even if I were to meet a man who I trusted enough to want to have a child with and a future with, I'll be well into my 40s by then. I plan to be very picky, but I'm not even at the point of wanting to find somebody new yet. We're not getting back together, for now. We get along great when we're not married and living in the same house. We feel it'd be irresponsible to all of our children to attempt to get back together right now because of this. Chances are higher that we'll be able to co-parent this baby successfully if we live separately. However, we are committed to working together to do what has to be done to take care of the baby when he or she gets here. Our kids are doing so great right now and they seem very happy and secure with the current setup of our lives and homes, so we want to stick with this for now. I don't know if I really understand what I'm getting myself into. Our other kids were all born into a marriage and a two-parent home. I know that sharing custody of a baby will be a lot different than the kids going back and forth between homes. I might be feeling too positive about it, but I think it could work out fine. The new baby will just see this as normal, right? Next thing to worry about will be having to explain this to everyone when we tell them. My family and friends will get over it, but I'm especially concerned with explaining it to our kids. I'm worried our oldest won't take the news well. She also knows what sex is and how babies are made. And for everyone concerned about his girlfriend, she's not his girlfriend anymore. Top-rated comment: these two are 100% getting back together within a year and then breaking up again in another. Update 2. Several people have asked me for an update on my situation. My ex-husband and I are having a baby. My other posts are on my profile. A recap is that we were married for 10 years, divorced for almost 1.5 years now, and have 3 kids together. We slept together twice during a stressful family time and I ended up pregnant. We've since admitted we are both still in love with each other, but have not actually declared that we're back together, mainly for the same of our kids. I last posted toward the end of January. I'm 28 weeks pregnant. We're having a little girl. As far as the pregnancy goes, it's been like a textbook pregnancy, and so I feel pretty good. Just more tired than I ever remember being during pregnancy before. My husband and I continue to live separately and share custody of our kids. We each have them 50% of the time. They're all aware that we're having a baby and none of them seem to be deeply confused or emotionally damaged by their divorced parents having a baby together. We explained it in an age-appropriate way. Our oldest child was more grossed out that her parents had sex than anything else, since she now understands what sex is and how babies are made. We've been involved with her quite a bit and she's excited now. I even took her to one of my appointments. She's excited to have a baby sister and she understands that mom and dad love her and her siblings, that we love this new baby, and that we love each other as people and as parenting partners without actually being together as a married couple in one house. Meanwhile, my husband and I have started to attend couples counseling. We tried marriage counseling when we were separated before we divorced, but I think we were both already pretty mentally done, so counseling didn't do much for us then. I think we're getting way more out of it now because we're actually invested in it and putting in a lot of effort. Sometimes I feel great after a session, and at other times I feel not so great and am reminded of reasons why we divorced. Overall, I think it's a good thing for us no matter what happens with our relationship. We've been sleeping together for the last few months. We already agreed that we won't be seeing other people at this time. I wouldn't be saying this while pregnant anyway, and it's not as if I'll even have time with 3 kids and a newborn. We agreed that we will not open ourselves to being with other people while we are working on our relationship and before that conversation is had between us. We are carrying on just as we have been since our divorce, as far as our kids are concerned. Dad doesn't spend the night at our house. We do things together as a family sometimes, but we were doing that even before anything was rekindled between us. We're not acting as a couple when we're together as a family. We're friendly with each other, but there is no holding hands, kissing, etc. Our main concern is our kids. We refuse to say we're back together. If we officially get back together, we really want to feel certain that it'd be for the long term, that we're ready to commit to that. We don't want to give our kids whiplash or do anything to make them insecure about our family. We would like to get to that point, but we aren't there yet. I think if my husband had his way, we'd be there. He's ready to say he's there now. He'd love to move back home. But he understands and agrees with my reasoning. I'd love for him to move back home too, based only on emotions. We both have things to work on, separately and together. I want to be a better spouse this time around. I thought I was being a really great wife and I was on the surface. I also know that right now I feel so in love and am hopped on hormones and pregnancy happiness. I always feel super happy, super positive, and super horny during pregnancy, and I know I have to be careful with trusting anything I feel during this time because it's like I'm on a 24/7 natural high. I think the biggest issue right now is that he's far more, let's throw caution to the wind, even though he agrees with all of my reasoning, and I want to be way more careful. Final update. I've made a few posts about my husband getting pregnant after we divorced. We were married for 10 years and had 3 kids before getting divorced. We got along so much better after we divorced and we have been really good co-parents during this time, but we were functioning strictly as friendly co-parents. We slept together around 1 year after our divorce was finalized and conceived a 4th baby, which we ultimately decided to keep. Our 4th child, a sweet baby girl, was born at the end of May. She's so perfect and we both feel we made the right choice to bring her into the world. It was the smoothest, easiest birth I've had and I take that as a sign. I feel like I fell in love with him all over again during labor and delivery, and that's when I knew I was ready to make our relationship official and public to everyone, including our children. Contrary to all the assumptions, our kids really don't seem to be negatively affected or confused about the baby, and I don't think the newest baby is getting any less love or attention than our 3 kids born within our marriage have. This is normal to them now. They understand we're still a family, and no matter what, we'll always be a family whether mom and dad live together. We are still living separately and technically still maintaining the custody schedule we had in place for our oldest 3 kids. Although, the kids are with me every weekday right now since it's summer break and I'm on maternity leave. We have a different arrangement for the baby, but he does take her overnight a few nights a week. I got our family home in the divorce and he spends time here with all of us. He has spent some nights here at home to help with the baby, but he doesn't stay in my bedroom quite yet. He has not moved in, although he has tried and continues to suggest it. This is probably the biggest point of contention these days. To me, this feels like the best of both worlds. I love him and truly don't want to be with anyone else. I think I sort of function better and am happier also living in my own space that he just visits. I know it's not the norm and some might say this means I don't really love him as much as I think. I really believe I'm just one of those people who needs more independence and alone time, and maybe we never would have got divorced in the first place if this had been the arrangement from the beginning. Is it sort of selfish? Maybe. I don't know anyone else with this arrangement, but I know some people out there do this. For all intents and purposes, we are together in a relationship again. We've made it official and exclusive, as juvenile as that sounds. We had already made it official between ourselves, but we hadn't really announced it to family and friends or our kids. We are still in love with each other or back in love with each other, and we are not seeing anyone else. Our kids have adjusted well. They've been seeing a therapist since we filed for divorce, so that has really helped us navigate some of this. Prior to the baby's birth, we did not tell them that we were essentially in a relationship. Only so long you can keep that a secret from your kids. Even though they're young, they're perceptive. So we've recently explained to them that mommy and daddy love each other, but we get along better living in separate homes, and for now we think this is the best thing for our family. The only problem is that now they keep asking about when we will all live together again. I'm sure it's a little confusing to them, but I'm not sure how we could be handling it any better. We attempted marriage counseling when we separated, before divorce. It was not successful. I don't think either of us was 100% committed to it at the time. He really did not take it seriously back then, but I was more stubborn and resistant than I originally realized. We're in couples therapy now and it's like night and day compared to last time. I'm scared to live together again, so we aren't going to do that anytime soon. It's not that I don't trust him. I don't trust us as a couple. I refuse to put my kids through all of that again. So, getting remarried and moving in together isn't something in the plans right now. Maybe one day. I hope we can get to that point. I just don't want my kids to have to go through a divorce and splitting households yet again. I feel like they'd lose all trust in us then. OP on their living situation. I think it might be best for us to find a way to each have our own place next to each other or on the same property, instead of one actual house that we share. Other than not living together, we are together. It's no different than any other couple that's dating but doesn't live together. Well, it's a little different since we share kids and we were once married and I still usually refer to him as my husband, but not too different. We aren't keeping our relationship a secret anymore, so we aren't pretending to not be together. Everyone knows now. We spend a lot of time together. But yeah, he may eventually want more than I do, as in a relationship where we live together 24/7. At this point, the hubby's ex-GF was firmly in the rearview mirror and OP was still brushing it off as if it is no biggie, but I found one exchange that people may find interesting. OP, downvoted. Yes, he had a girlfriend at the time. It's in my post history and I'm not trying to hide it, but we have moved well beyond that now. Response. People are downvoting her comment because it is pretty black and white when it comes to cheating. Cheating hurts others and a lot of people value living in a world and having actions that don't result in hurting others. He was in a relationship and committed to his girlfriend when he decided that he had the right to sleep with his ex and not immediately tell her that he did it. She deserved better than to get trauma from someone who claimed to be committed to her, but was willing to step out on her. Cheating on someone does result in emotional trauma, which will affect how they will view love and relationships going forward. Personally, if he wasn't ready to be in a relationship with her, then he should have left her alone. I am tired of men in particular getting into relationships with women when they know they are not clearly over their ex-partner. It is a sign of selfishness and pure disregard of another human being's health. She was used as an emotional support and sex object by him, because no one that respects their partner would do something this cruel. So I'm not going to cheer on someone who could have just avoided this entire situation by not being in a relationship when he was clearly not ready to be in one. And hurt someone deeply. Edit, I want to add additional thought as well. Cheating is not only an emotional hurt but a sign that you give zero care about your partner's health. He was presumably still having sex with his ex-girlfriend after sleeping with no condoms with his ex-wife. With the rate of sexually transmitted diseases and infections increasing and the likelihood of the disease being antibiotic resistant, he told his ex that he had zero care for health and emotional well-being. She had the basic right to know that he slept with another person while still being intimate with her. Especially with no form of protection. Not calling the ex-wife dirty but with the risk of catching a disease that's incurable, or opens you up to higher risk of illness. Every person who is engaging in a sexual relationship deserves honesty. OP. All of this may be true. I'm not arguing anything you said. But I'd like to know what everyone on Reddit thinks we're supposed to do about it. We can't go back in time and undo what we did. Maybe Redditors feel that as an act of penance we should not be together, despite very much wanting to, since that's what we deserve for hurting her in the process. We should never be allowed to move on and have any happiness in our lives, together or separate, because we did something at one time that hurt somebody. Short of publicly flogging ourselves and maybe not allowing ourselves to ever be in a relationship with anyone ever again as a form of self-punishment, what are we supposed to do to satisfy the masses? Neither of us are proud of hurting somebody. Am I the asshole for telling my friend, who is vegan and doesn't drink, that I'm tired of catering to her choices? My 50F friend Lauren, 46F, is a vegan who doesn't drink. That's awesome and I have no issue with that. The problem is that she is part of a small group of friends who don't get out very often, but when we do it always has to be limited due to Lauren's choices. We live in an area where our food choices suck to begin with. So having to go to eat where she can be satisfied is very limited. There really isn't much to do otherwise at night. In addition, she gets upset when any one of us eats something that has an obvious meat to it. For example, she doesn't say anything if we get a soup with chicken or something, but if we ordered a hamburger she would cause drama. Then she doesn't drink, which is no big deal, but she will then send us videos on the harmful effects of alcohol if we get a drink or two with dinner. It has gotten on my nerves to say the least. It's been a while now, so I am done with everyone catering to her needs. I have tried inviting everyone to specific places and invited Lauren as well. Then she puts into a group chat, "Hey ladies, since I can't eat at X, why don't we go to Y?" Then of course the other ones decide we should go to Y instead. I have backed off of going out because I don't want to spend money on food that sucks. Remember, it's vegan not vegetarian, so it's very limiting. And is expensive, or have my intelligence questioned by sending shit about the effects of alcohol as if we are not beyond old enough to know or Google it. I barely drink anyway but enjoy a glass or two every so often. She asked why I keep bailing, so I told her I respect your choices but by the very nature of them they have limited mine. Being that I don't have the ability to go out often nor unlimited funds, I am only going to go when I know the entire experience will be what I want. So if I'm in the mood for a steak and a vodka tonic, I want to have them in a relaxed atmosphere, and that obviously bugs you. If I'm in the mood for a salad and water, I will gladly join you, or we can just hang out at the beach when we have time during the day. She didn't like that too much. She said that isn't what friendship is about and I should enjoy the company enough not to care. I told her that I understood and I would gladly hang out with her when food or drink isn't in question because it's too expensive not to enjoy it. She said that there is nothing else to do around here. Then I asked if it's just about friends. Maybe she can eat first and join us out sometimes, and other times we can go to where she wants. She then told me that she's not going to sit around watching people eat meat. I said, okay, I get it, and you need to get that I'm not catering to your needs each time I'm free to hang out. I later got a text from a mutual friend that Lauren was upset, but she agreed with me because she was tired of the same shit. Of course this friend doesn't like conflict, so just listen to Lauren. So AITA for not wanting to continue to eat food I don't like or refrain from having a drink or two to keep the peace here, or am I right in feeling like she's being selfish expecting the rest of us to do what she's comfortable with each time? Relevant comments. Comment 1, NTA but drop the friends that don't like conflict. Why surround yourself with spineless morons? OP, true. It was all getting on my nerves and why I was happy not going anymore. However, I sometimes wonder if I'm an asshole when others just easily bend to other people. I appreciate that. Comment 2, NTA, Lauren is an ass though. The condescending comments about meat and alcohol are beyond me. OP, the alcohol really pissed me off. It was such a self-righteous type of behavior to me. Comment 3, NTA. She's exactly right. That isn't what friendship is about, and so why can't she enjoy hanging out with her friends who are allowed to eat and drink whatever they want, while she eats and drinks what she wants? I'm sorry, there's probably not a great ending here, but the way she's framed the situation can easily be turned around back on her, so she's not right. Neither is she wrong. It just may be that you two are incompatible as friends. OP, yes, I'm feeling we are not a good fit. To be honest, I am working hard on setting boundaries, but sometimes I question if I'm not going overboard, especially when many other women my age seem to just go along with something. I felt like she was being extremely selfish but thought I could be missing something, and why I asked. OP on if she had a problem with Lauren being a vegan and doesn't drink. OP, no. The problem is that I'm expected to become a vegan and not drink in her presence. I don't care what she does, but she cares what I do and the other women as well. OP on the food choices in the area. OP, nice try. I live in a small beach town. There is shitty food to begin with, so the options are extremely limited here. So I can't tell you how many salads I have been limited to eating while going out with her. There are no solely vegan restaurants and very few that have vegan options. She doesn't make it worthwhile to listen to negativity to get what you actually want, so that leaves fucking salad. So just because you misinterpret what I meant or assume the worst in people doesn't mean you're right. Fucking fame? Seriously. Damn. I thought my life was pretty lame just asking this question, and to think someone thinks I'd actually make this shit up. FFS. Update. Thank you so much to the countless people who commented on my post shown below. You made me realize that I wasn't an AH and shouldn't have put up with her BS. Many asked how I put up with it for so long. I don't have a good answer, but it was more about the group itself, where I didn't want to create drama. My experience with friends has been lucky, as most everyone has been loving, fun and selfless. We can also call each other out on BS by busting chops and laughing. This was my first group who met semi-regularly, and the others were very sweet to where I felt uncomfortable rocking the boat. Anyway, yesterday it was a bazillion degrees out here in Florida and I was playing tennis with Lauren and 2 others. We were dying. I don't normally play with her, but these women are all on my team I joined coming up in the fall, so we needed to start practicing. No, I did not join because of Lauren. LOL. I've played against the other 2 throughout the years and they have been asking for me to play for a long time now. I live in a small area, so it's common for circles to mix like this. One of the ladies had to stop due to dizziness, cramping and nausea. We all decided that we should only play much earlier in the summer. Except of course Lauren, who didn't want to wake up early because she said she didn't play well then. That's when I had it. With the power of thousands of random Reddit strangers in my head, I basically told her off. I told her I've never met someone so self-absorbed in my entire life, and it was disgusting that she would even think that way in front of a teammate who clearly had heat exhaustion, let alone have it come out of her mouth. I said all this while her ass was sitting down, while the other woman and I got a cold wet towel for this woman and got her to drink. Lauren stormed off. These other 2 thanked me. One was her usual partner, who is the sweetest person alive and said she has been wanting to tell her off for a year now. The other one, who was feeling like shit, said she is going to tell the captain that she needs to go because she is like a cancer on the team. I am very happy to say that I will not be dealing with her selfish BS any longer. She can go shove a carrot up her ass for all I care. LOL, thanks so much everyone. Tonight I'm going to have a giant hamburger and a cold beverage in your honor. Cheers. Relevant comments. OP not respecting Lauren's wishes and trying to make this whole thing about herself and not Lauren. OP, I did say something and suggested other things. She wasn't having it. I wasn't pouting. We are busy and have lives, so this isn't the end of the world, and I was quite happy with that choice. I kindly told her my feelings and she told me I wasn't being a good friend because it isn't about the food. So then why do we have to eat her shit every time then? I wasn't hurt over the videos. It was fucked up to cross others' boundaries like that, as she was some self-righteous queen of health. She's controlling, as thousands have pointed out. That should be clear with her not budging on playing in the mornings after her teammate got sick from the heat. I spoke with her already calmly and nicely. She never budged and only expected me to continue to bend to her needs, inferring I was not a good friend. I still ended that conversation in a respectful manner to then learn she goes to a mutual friend to bitch about me. It was after the above that I felt she was extremely selfish, but I still wasn't sure because she turned it around on me. That's why I came here to Reddit. I didn't go off on her about the food. I went off on her because there was a woman about to throw up due to extreme heat. While another woman and myself were trying to cool her down and make sure she was okay, Lauren made it again about her. She sat there bitching about not wanting to play earlier because she doesn't play well early in the morning. BTW, that is complete bullshit because the matches start early in the mornings and she's played in this league for many years. I'm sorry, but you must be extremely infuriating to anyone who needs your help and needs you to listen. You fill in gaps to stories that don't exist, you assume what people are feeling and why they have done certain things and then come across in a very pompous manner that you are correct. Yes, you're absolutely correct to the shit you literally made up in your head. However, you are very far off from what happened with me, how I felt and why I acted the way I did. When a girl in the gym asked for help while recording, I refused, sparking an unexpected turn of events. Was I wrong? I think I acted rudely with a girl in the gym and wanted to get opinions on if I was the AH in this situation. I, 41M, go to the gym early in the morning around 5:30 a.m. There are generally very few people that come to the gym at that time. There is a girl, early 20s, that also comes to the gym at the same time. We always say hello to each other and have small talk between our sets. She comes in early because the gym is empty, and she likes to record herself working out as she wants to be a fitness influencer or something. She seems dedicated and we have known each other for at least a year. This morning, as I was working out, she came to me and asked for help. She was very excited and told me that she wanted to go for a PR on barbell squat. She asked me if I could spot her as she was not confident if she would be able to do it. I said okay, as this is not the most uncommon thing. For people who are unfamiliar, this is an exercise where you carry a barbell with weights on your back and perform a squat. The spotter has to stand behind the person and support the person in case they fail to get up. As she was getting ready, I saw her phone in the corner and asked her if I could be off camera or if she can stop recording. She said she really wanted to record herself doing it and I will look good on camera. I told her that I really do not want to be on camera as my wife or co-workers may watch the video if she posts it online and may not look good for me. Another reason that I did not tell her was that she was wearing a very revealing outfit, small sports bra and tight shorts, and I really did not feel comfortable being recorded standing behind her. She promised me that she will record it for herself, and not post the video. However, I just did not want to be recorded. I told her that I really feel uncomfortable. And if she waits for 30 minutes, one of the trainers may be able to help her. She became really upset and asked me why I'm making the situation weird. She accused me of sexualizing her. She asked me if she was a man, would I have done it? I felt she had a point as I have done it for other people. I told her that I would be okay doing it, but I just don't want to be recorded doing it. She again went on a rant about me body shaming her and me being uncomfortable with her perfectly fine outfit. I felt bad that I upset her as she was just trying to work out. I have also asked people to spot me in past, and people always helped. However, I just did not want to be recorded. Am I the AH to refuse to spot her because she was recording it? I don't want her to feel that it was because of her clothes, or because she is a girl. However, as a married man, I need to observe some boundaries and really don't want to be recorded in that way with a girl half my age. I am also worried that she recorded our whole conversation and may post it online. I do not know what I should do in this situation and am a bit worried. Relevant comments. Commenter, NTA. People who are pointing out the line of how you think it would look inappropriate if a coworker or wife saw you aren't familiar with lifting. If she reached failure, it would absolutely look bad on you, because people don't understand what spotting and having to assist with squats looks like. OP, that was exactly what went through my mind. Plus, who knows what commentary someone can put on top of those videos to make it go viral. Update. I had posted on a different forum 3 weeks ago about me refusing to help a girl in the gym for spotting her barbell squat because she was recording us. I did not think it would blow up so much that my wife got this story on her TikTok. What happened after was pretty unexpected and my life is a bit absurd right now. I was worried that she would post our conversation about me refusing her help online and show me as the bad guy. I told my wife about the conversation, and she said that she has seen posts where young girls do add nasty voiceovers and make men my age look like creeps for views. My wife told me that I should just complain to the gym management about her for recording me without my consent, just to get ahead of things. When I went to the gym next week, I saw her again. I tried to keep my distance, but she kept on smiling at me. As I finished my sets, she came to me and asked me if we could talk. She wanted to apologize for her behavior from the previous day and how it was wrong of her to assume that I would be okay with her recording me. It was a pleasant surprise, as I was not expecting that. I told her that it was okay, and I just don't like to be recorded in general. She followed me outside and continued the conversation. She asked me how long I have been working out and I could advise her on her form. I told her that there are some really good personal trainers in the gym I could recommend to her, but she told me that she is unemployed and cannot afford them. She told me she will buy me a coffee if I can give her some pointers. At this point, I felt I was just being rude and told her sure, and we went to a nearby coffee shop. Her name is Haley. She graduated last year, moved back to her mom's house and is looking for a job. She was very chubby last year and wants to look like the TikTok fitness models and is trying hard to get in shape. We had a nice conversation, and I was able to help her with some of her questions. She already knew my name and asked me if my wife would be okay if she follows me on Instagram. I told her that the main purpose of that account is for my wife to spy on my friends' lives, so I generally don't use it. She asked me if I use Snapchat, and I had to remind her that I am twice her age. This is where it got crazy. When I came home, I told my wife about what happened. My wife loves her Reels and TikTok and wanted to see if she ever posted the video from the previous week. I only knew that her first name was Haley and how she looked and told my wife about it. When I came back from work in the evening, my wife was already home and sitting on the sofa. She was grinning ear to ear and told me to immediately sit next to her. Apparently, this girl had been posing about me and calling me her gym crush for the last 2 months. My face is blurred out in all the videos. A lot of videos were of her sitting in her car every morning and making up completely fictional romantic stories about our interactions. Each video had like 100 plus likes, which my wife says is not a lot, but feels like a lot. She had posted some videos of us just passing each other and smiling, or our conversation where I was telling her to stop recording, with a voiceover about how I approached her in the gym and complimented her body. There was a video from that morning about her coming to me while I was packing up, with her saying how I asked her out for a coffee. She is just making up fictional romantic bullshit for getting likes, and people were commenting and cheering for her. There were also other videos of her working out and posing in the gym locker room. My wife was laughing uncontrollably about how big of a sucker I am and how I'm internet famous now. I told her this needs to stop, but my wife insisted that she is too invested in the drama now and wants to see what happens next. She said that this girl is really young, and just trying to establish herself and get more followers. Plus, she has not done anything inappropriate and is not showing my face in the videos. My wife just wants me to play along and see what crazy Haley does next. So for the last 2 weeks, I have been going to the gym, talking to her every day, and my wife keeps me updated on what story she came up with for the day. We go for a coffee every Wednesday and I am mentoring her about nutrition and what she should focus on, to the best of my abilities. It's all a game for my wife, and I do want Haley to succeed as long as she does not cross a line. However, the whole thing feels really crazy, and I'm too old to deal with this shit. I am not sure how long I can keep up with the act. Her behavior seems innocent, but also, I'm getting a bit uncomfortable with the whole thing now. Relevant comments. Did the girl know OOP is married? OP. Yes. She knows I'm married. I wear my ring in the gym and also I talk about my wife all the time to her. I also feel it's a bit weird for a 22-year-old person to make up stories. My wife feels she is just using me as an NPC in her fiction to gain more viewers and create drama. We discussed it and she told me about how some girls just make up stories about bad first dates on TikTok as it gets them a lot of views. My wife feels it's weird, but I need to see the humor in this situation. At least it's entertaining and she wants to know where her story goes next. What was all about in the coffee discussion? OP. What are the coffee discussions like? It seems weird for her to do that. If it is just for TikTok attention, it's easier for her to make stuff up. The coffee discussions are very fitness oriented, and she genuinely has legit questions. We do discuss stuff about our lives, mostly hers, and she shares her struggles in getting a job and life in general for a Gen Z person. However, she has never said anything inappropriate. I feel she must have had some footage of me passing her and smiling and greeting her and just used that in her edits. My stepsister stole my fiancé and taunted me with postcards. Now they're broke and begging for a job at our family business. I, 28F, was engaged to my college boyfriend about 4 years ago. We had been together throughout college and got engaged at 23. A week before our wedding, he ran off with my stepsister. My ex-fiancé Greg, 28M, and my stepsister Melissa, 28F, eloped just before our big day, leaving only a letter behind. In the letter, Greg admitted to starting an affair with Melissa a few months after our engagement. He said he realized he couldn't marry me because it would be unfair to all of us, as he and Melissa were the ones truly in love. He believed the universe used me to bring him to his true love, and marrying me would deny us all a happy future. And that was it. They left, and I didn't see them again until recently. Greg's parents were so embarrassed by his actions that they covered all the wedding costs, so I didn't have to pay anything. That was the last time I interacted with his family. My own family was beyond embarrassed. They were furious. My father even considered hiring a private detective to track them down and bring them back for answers. Just to let you know, my father is actually my stepdad, but he has been my father ever since I was very young, and I have always called him Dad because he is the only father I've ever known. My biological dad left shortly after I was born, and my mom never saw him again since he gave up his parental rights, and they were never married. My mom married my dad when I was 8. Melissa and I went to the same school, which is how our parents met. For some reason, Melissa took a dislike to me and treated me terribly for years. She was a true bully, constantly picking on me at school with her friends. The torment didn't stop at home. She would find ways to make me feel bad there too. Despite my complaints, our parents' attempts to discipline her weren't effective and she wasn't afraid of them, so she continued her bullying. My school years were a nightmare because of her and her friends. Much like my dad was absent, Melissa's mom wasn't around either, as she had passed away a few years after Melissa was born. Her mother died in the middle of the night from an epileptic episode, so whenever my mom tried to discipline her, Melissa would retort that she had no right because she wasn't her real mom. My father attempted to stop her bullying, but it was futile as she was fearless. They tried everything from scolding to gentle talks, but nothing curbed her behavior. Occasionally, they threatened to send her away, but she would boldly challenge them, knowing they were empty threats. In middle school, she was already troublesome, but by high school, her behavior worsened significantly. She picked up bad habits, becoming almost a juvenile delinquent. She started smoking and sneaking out to drink with her equally problematic friends. The turning point came when she was arrested with her friends one night for breaking into a house while drunk. This incident finally pushed our parents to take action. After weeks of pleading and protesting, they managed to send her to a rehabilitation center for troubled teens. Though she was unhappy, my father was adamant, insisting that if she wanted to stay with us and be part of the family, she had to improve. He couldn't allow her behavior to continue and disrupt everyone else as she was becoming a menace to society. Melissa left during our sophomore year and didn't return until after we had graduated. She enrolled in a school near the rehab center and stayed with her aunt. I didn't see her during those years because I had no interest in how my biggest bully was doing. My parents visited her every weekend and always asked if I wanted to join, but I always said no. Her friends ignored me after she left, which greatly improved my high school experience as I no longer had anyone constantly bullying me. Melissa continued her education in rehab and, when she returned, the first thing she did was apologize for everything she had put me through. She seemed much calmer, and I thought she had genuinely changed, so I forgave her. We were both heading off to college in a few months anyway, so it didn't seem to matter much. Once college started, we both moved out and only came back home for the holidays. During those times, she was much nicer to me. Not in the sense of being friendly, but she simply ignored me instead of constantly picking on me as she used to. I had no reason to suspect anything even after getting engaged. They both acted as if nothing was happening. I never thought Greg might have feelings for Melissa. It never crossed my mind because Greg convincingly acted like he was in love with me, all while cheating on me with Melissa. She also pretended to be my friend, so I didn't find out the truth until it was too late and they had already left. My parents wanted to track them down and bring them back, but I convinced them to let it go because I just wanted to forget everything. It was already devastating that Greg and Melissa made a fool of me by running off a week before my wedding. I couldn't handle any more drama. I was deeply depressed and emotionally drained. For weeks, I buried myself in work and sleep to avoid confronting my heartbreak. My heart was shattered and I felt numb, but worse was yet to come. A couple of weeks after the day that should have been my wedding, I received a postcard from Melissa. She was in California, and included a bunch of photos of her and Greg looking incredibly happy. It was clear she was rubbing it in my face. She mentioned being sorry about the surprise before my wedding, but it was obvious she wasn't truly sorry. She just wanted to hurt me. That's when I realized she had never forgiven me for what happened years ago and blamed me for being sent away. She never wanted to be my friend. She used me to get to Greg. I had trusted her and ended up being a stepping stone in her malicious plan. I have to admit, for days after receiving that postcard, I couldn't sleep because I was losing my mind over it. It was a traumatic experience, and I needed months of therapy to heal and address my trust issues. The postcard wasn't a one-time thing. She sent me pictures of her and Greg for months. It only stopped after about a year because I never responded or engaged with her drama. Our parents were furious and cut all ties with her after the first postcard. They never reached out to her again, which was a significant loss for Melissa because she was poised to inherit her dad's business. She was a business major, partly because she wanted to join our father's company. However, after her betrayal, our father severed all ties with her and offered me the opportunity to work with him instead, feeling he needed to make amends in a significant way. Unlike her, I had a degree in history, which had nothing to do with business. Therefore, I needed to learn the ropes from scratch. My father assured me this wasn't an issue and was eager to teach me everything he knew so I could eventually take over the business. I agreed and started working under him to learn how to run the business, allowing him to retire and hand over the reins to me. After a few years of hard work, I was promoted last year, and my father retired. It was a fantastic feeling, having started from the bottom and learned everything I needed to know. Now, the business runs smoothly under my management, and my parents can enjoy their time together without worrying about it, thanks to my efforts. For a long time, I immersed myself in my work, which helped me move on from Greg. The combination of work and therapy allowed me to heal, and I no longer think about Greg or what he did. I never expected to hear from them again, let alone have them ask for my help. It would take a lot of nerve and a serious lack of common sense to ask for my help after betraying me, humiliating me and flaunting it. Yet Melissa and Greg must indeed lack sense, because that's exactly what they did a few days ago. It was the weekend, and around lunchtime, my doorbell rang frantically. Thinking it was the pizza I ordered, I didn't think much of it. To my shock, when I opened the door, instead of the delivery guy, there stood Melissa, looking extremely worried. Speechless, I waited for her to speak. It was clear she was there to ask for help. She looked destitute and her appearance betrayed her situation. Melissa, always impeccably dressed, now wore old faded clothes that looked long out of date. Her jeans were too short, and she appeared malnourished. I had already decided that whatever she asked, my answer would be no. She explained that she and Greg had been struggling ever since he lost his job a few months ago. Instead of job hunting, he had taken to drinking. Although she had been trying to find a job, her efforts were unsuccessful because she had left the workforce to handle household chores when she moved away with Greg. This gap in her resume made her a less attractive candidate for the job she applied for. She had heard from relatives that our father had retired and handed the business over to me, so she came to ask if I would hire Greg. Melissa admitted she hadn't approached our parents yet and came straight to me because she believed I had a kind heart and felt immense guilt over her past betrayal, confident I wouldn't turn her away. Now that she needed my help, her entitlement was so absurd that I laughed in her face and told her to apply elsewhere because I don't hire cheaters. Then I shut the door on her and walked back to the living room, ready to call the cops if she didn't leave soon. Fortunately, she left that day, but she hasn't stopped bothering me. After her visit, I called our parents to tell them about it. They said they'd heard from neighbors that Melissa was back in town without Greg but hadn't mentioned it. In our small town, news travels fast, so we quickly found out that Melissa had been in town for about a week, staying with an old high school friend. It was likely this friend who told her where I lived and that I had inherited the business she thought should have been hers. She was now really playing that card. A few days after visiting me, she went to our parents to complain about how heartless I was. She expected them to side with her, thinking she had the upper hand by playing the victim, but she was wrong. My father told her that the business was mine to run and I could make my own decisions. He wasn't going to interfere. My mother reminded her that she had betrayed me by running away with my fiancé after pretending to be my friend for years, so she deserved whatever was happening to her. Melissa had lost the right to ask any of us for help, especially after sending me postcards to torment me. She tried to defend herself, saying it was all in the past and she was a different person now, but my parents told her to leave, wanting nothing to do with her anymore. She threw a tantrum, accusing them of always favoring me and treating me like the golden child while ignoring her. My father responded that he had made more allowances for her behavior than any other parent would, but she insisted it still didn't matter. I had everything she was supposed to have, including the business I was flaunting. She claimed it wasn't her fault that Greg fell for her and chose her over me, yet she felt she was being punished for it. She said the postcards she sent were sincere apologies, not attempts to torment me. Honestly, I haven't stopped thinking about her words since my father told me. It's true she was supposed to inherit the business and be in my position, but she lost that because of her own actions, not mine. I never asked my father to cut her out and give me the business, he did that on his own. It seems unfair for her to blame me. She also accused me of being the golden child, which isn't true, but I can see why she thinks that. She believes she was sent away because I complained about her bullying. It's a big deal for a parent to decide to send their child away, and I know it was hard on my father. But again, that's not my fault. If he hadn't intervened, Melissa might have ended up in even more trouble because of the path she was on. I also doubt her claim about the postcards being genuine apologies. She was probably just trying to cover up her intentions. I feel sorry for her because her husband turned out to be completely useless, and now she has to bail him out. She even came to me for help, which must have been incredibly hard for her. I regret how I treated her before. I have everything now, and she has nothing, so I can't help but pity her. That's just who I am. Besides, It's been a long time, and I'm tired of holding on to this grudge. But I also don't want to help her. I can offer my sympathy, but I don't want to hire them or give them money. I think it's enough that I even feel bad for her after everything she put me through, which most people wouldn't do. The only reason I feel bad for her now is that this business was supposed to be hers. Now that I'm in a position of power, I'm finally getting back at her. And it feels wrong. Maybe it's because of what she said about me being the golden child, or maybe it's just imposter syndrome, but I feel weird about this. So am I the AH for refusing to hire my ex-fiancé, who eloped with my stepsister, now that they're struggling with money and need help? Update. I was at a loss and the comments here only made things more confusing. Some of you thought I was right to turn them away, while others claimed I was always the favored child, causing Melissa to act out. This wasn't as helpful as I hoped. I decided to talk to my parents, as I've always sought their advice when facing problems. They assured me I had no reason to feel sorry for Melissa. They said everyone had gone above and beyond to help her become a better person, but if she wasn't willing to change, there was little we could do. My father mentioned he had intended to let her take over the business if she had behaved and been a good daughter, but she failed and embarrassed the family. Given that, she couldn't expect to take over or even be part of the family anymore. Talking to my parents made me feel much better. So, I'll try not to feel guilty about things I haven't done anymore. Update. About a week had passed since Melissa had shown up at my door and visited my parents. We hadn't heard from her, and I almost thought she had gone back to Greg until today when she appeared at my workplace and caused a scene. It was terrible because she just walked in, knowing the place well from childhood, and easily bypassed security. She stood in front of my office, shouting that I had stolen the business from her by pretending to be a perfect daughter to our parents and constantly sucking up to them to gain their approval. She accused me of falsely claiming she had bullied me throughout our childhood and convincing our father to send her to rehab just to solidify my position as the favored child. She declared that the business was supposed to be hers, but I was refusing to let her be a part of it because I was jealous Greg had chosen her over me, unlike our parents who had always favored me. She said I had lost my mind from being overlooked and had turned our parents against her. When I heard the commotion, I called security and went to see what was happening. I tried to tell her to shut up, but she continued for a few more minutes until security finally threw her out of the building. I called my dad before contacting the police to get his opinion, and he was furious. He told me to go ahead and call the cops. Luckily, when the police arrived, she was still lurking nearby, likely waiting for me to leave so she could confront me again or maybe even physically attack me. The police took her away and charged her with trespassing and disturbing the peace. They are minor charges, and she might get off with a fine or community service at worst, but it will go on her record, which is never good. I informed my dad about the charges and arrest, expecting him to be upset, but he just seemed exasperated and said he was tired of dealing with her craziness. I feel bad for him because it must be hard having a daughter like Melissa and being blamed for everything that goes wrong in her life, even though it's usually her own fault. Honestly, we have all been really patient. Update. So I think Melissa has gone back to California because we haven't heard from her in a few days, which is unusual since we expected her to lash out after her arrest. My dad asked around and found out that some people saw her heading towards the airport recently, so it seems she's left. Honestly, it's a huge relief that she's gone because I was really worried she might do something drastic to get our attention, which is never good. I have no idea what she plans to do about the situation with Greg now, as it seems unlikely she'll get help from anyone after this. I just hope she finds something to do and gets out of this mess, not out of kindness or compassion, but because if she doesn't, she'll just come back here with Greg and bother us again, and I don't want that. So I genuinely hope and pray that either she or Greg finds a job and can support themselves. For now at least, I won't have to hear from her for a couple of weeks, and I believe this nightmare is finally over.